McNamara of TrueCrimeDiary.com.
Michelle McNamara was a true crime blogger.
She was a writer and producer. She was a citizen detective and a true crime writer.
Very much being a mom during the day, very much writing about true crime at night. She was working on all different types of unsolved cases. Then she found a case that really dug its claws into her.
What turned him on was terror. The East Area Rapist Original Night Stalker is California's most prolific serial offender. He murdered more people than the Zodiac Killer, but has little name recognition. Partly that's because he moved between communities, and his crimes spanned 10 years.
Everything about it is mystery, and it has such a boogeyman aspect to it.
Michelle used to talk about this case, and the thing that boggled her mind is that people didn't know about it. This was one of the most horrific serial killers in history, and nobody talked about him.
It's summer, 1976. It was the bicentennial. It's all about happy days. Laverne and Shirley.
Haas and Beff Incorporated.
In those days, the middle class in America was thriving.
We felt safe, but the crime rates were going up.
But suburban Sacramento was considered a safe place in the mid-70s.
You could ride your bike all over town.
My parents would just tell us, be home before dark.
People didn't lock their doors, they left their windows open, especially people close to the river. We'd get the Delta breeze.
Everything changed in the summer of 1976.
An attack occurred in Rancho Cordova.
A young lady woke up, and there's a guy standing in the doorway. They blindfolded her, tied her up,
and then sexually assaults her. This is the first known sexual assault attributed to the man we know as the East Area Rapist.
Nobody knew about the first attack except the police. The first attack, the second, the third, the fourth.
When this first started in Sacramento, a lot of the people didn't know what was going on. They didn't put it in the paper at the time.
The press had not yet covered it because Sacramento County Sheriff's Department asked them not to.
There was a reason for that. That if you put it in there, the suspect's going to know that you're looking for him.
At the time the rape started happening in Sacramento Sheriff's Department didn't have a specialized sexual assault unit. Just whoever had a free caseload, that could take on another case. And so I did not become involved with these cases until rape number 5, when it was Jane Carson.
I was 30 years old. I was married with a 3-year-old son. My husband was stationed at McClellan Air Force Base.
Jane was a nurse. She was a colonel in the Air Force Reserve.
It was about 6:30 in the morning. My 3-year-old son hopped in bed with me for a snuggle. I heard the garage door close, and I knew my husband had just left for work. I saw a flashlight shining down the hall, and I thought, now that's odd, and I screamed out to my husband, "What have you forgotten?" And there was no answer.
Then the rapist, all dressed in ski mask and dark clothes, shining a flashlight at her.
He told us with clenched teeth, "Shut up, or I'll kill you."
He tells her to turn over, and he's going to tie her up.
He gags us, both of us. He blindfolds us, and he ties us up with shoelaces, very tight. His next move was to move my son. I was already scared to death, but this is where the fear really took place.
All she's thinking about is the life of her little boy and saving him.
After the rape was over, praise the Lord, he moved my son back next to me. I could feel his body, and then I was relieved. So we hobbled around to the front fence, screamed for a neighbor. She called the police. And then Carol Daly, the female detective, showed up. And I call her my angel.
One of my great heroes of this story is Carol Daly. She was an investigator for the Sheriff Department in Sacramento. She was asked to go out and interview the victims.
Maybe something that the man said, or something that he did to you, or something that you recall hearing.
Through that process, she was able to glean a lot of information, like what he would say to his victims. And sometimes he would call out a name.
In one of the cases, the victim said that she heard him crying and saying Bonnie.
For years, detectives didn't know what to make of this name. Who's Bonnie?
Bonnie was not a victim, but a mystery woman at the center of the case.
Bonnie was the girlfriend and then fiance of Joseph DeAngelo.
One of the first women to get a real glimpse of the psychopathy behind Joe DeAngelo was Bonnie Caldwell.
She's 18, really smart, going to a community college, studying nursing. And she's in the middle of the quad, and this older guy ambles up to her and begins a conversation.
Bonnie talked about her relationship with Joe DeAngelo in the HBO docuseries I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
He was very gregarious, outgoing to all my friends. We'd been together close to a year. He gave me a high solitaire engagement ring. And he told me that we're going to be married.
They were both students at the time. He was studying criminal justice. So Joe was someone who initially was impressive to Bonnie. He was exciting. He had a motorcycle. He taught her to shoot. But the longer she dated him, the more trouble began materializing.
He takes her on thrill rides. And this is where the relationship starts to show its hand with Joe.
Joe, without saying a word to me, just turned right, went down a very steep bank that I had no idea what he was doing.
He's obviously thrilled not just by the speed, but he's thrilled by Bonnie's terror.
The rules were never for him. So many of the things that we did together, he pushed me toward fear.
As they're riding on a motorcycle, a German Shepherd comes out from the side of the road and nips at the tires, and Joe swings a foot out and breaks the dog's neck instantly. There's such an efficiency to his movement that stuns her.
Eventually, Bonnie said, "I don't want to be with you anymore."
She actually broke their engagement. He showed up at her house in the middle of the night. He had a gun, and he told her that she had to marry him.
Just inches from my face, there was the barrel of a gun pointing at me, and it was Joe. What he said to me was, "Get your clothes on, get dressed, we're going to Reno, and we're going to get married tonight."
Her dad was able to break it up and send Joe on his way. I think it's a foreshadowing that he was going to use violence against people in the future.
Bonnie breaks her engagement with Joe DeAngelo, and within just a few years, strange crimes start happening in Rancho Cordova.
He would empty female underwear drawers and perfectly line up the underwear down the hallway.
It's all control and power. This is my house now. These are my items now. He's the king of the house.
Every obsession needs a room of its own. Mine was strewn with coloring paper on which I'd scribbled down California penal codes in crayon. It was around midnight on July 3rd, 2012, when I opened a document I'd compiled listing all the unique items he'd stolen over the years.
He would take mementos, almost like they were trophies from inside the home.
He would steal rings with engravings on them.
He stole driver's license. He stole photos from albums.
There is a fantasy component about these crimes.
I still have a part of you. I have your jewelry. I have your driver's license. I have, something that means something to you. And now I own it.
He was a serial rapist known as the Ear, attacking women and girls. First in East Sacramento County. This place meant something to him. He attacked here first and kept coming back. Was it home? Some of the investigators, especially the ones who worked the case in the beginning, think so.
We were always trying to figure out why victims were chosen and why the locations were chosen.
For Joe DeAngelo, this was his home, right in his own backyard. He lived in 3 or 4 houses in this exact same area where many of the rapes were committed.
He grew up in Rancho Cordova. He was familiar with the playgrounds, the schools, the empty lots. This is the home of the first documented rape that occurred in Sacramento County. He was very agile. He could jump over fences. He knew which way to go from whatever neighborhood he was in. He knew that the best way to get in and out.
He knew this area like the back of his hand. He grew up there.
Joseph D'Angelo Jr. grew up the son of a master sergeant in the Air Force who moved around a lot.
We met Joe when he was 13 years old. My father was stationed at Mayfair Air Force Base, and then his father was transferred there, and we shared a duplex.
The girl who became very close to him at the time, Judy, described a very lonely boy.
He was missing a family. His mother and father had split when he was young.
At a very young age, he was neglected. He and his siblings would be locked in the closet and then beaten by the father.
Per his siblings, Joe D'Angelo received the worst of his vitriol and anger when they were growing up.
Joe was always over at our house, and he just became a good family friend. He never talked about himself. He never talked about any problems he might have. He never discussed anything that was bothering him. They started reporting, the peeping Toms here in Rancho. And I remember I was in the bedroom and I was asleep, and I had this feeling. I woke up because I had this feeling somebody was there. And when I looked up and glanced towards the window, I saw this outlined figure. I didn't do anything to let them know I saw them, that I was aware of them. So the next morning I came in here and I says, Dad, I says, somebody was peeking in my window last night. And he says, what? And I says, yeah. And there was footprints out there in the dirt, 2 distinct footprints there.
It's very common for sexual offenders to start out, particularly in adolescence, as peepers or voyeurs that are creeping around the neighborhood, looking in windows, watching women undress, almost like a training ground.
Many of us had never seen anything like this before in our career. His whole thing was terror. It wasn't the sex. It was the terror that he wanted to put in these people that was his #1 priority.
His victims ranged in age from 13, I think, to 39.
Out of the first 10 attacks, 6 of those were juveniles.
Oftentimes, sex offenders or sexual serial murderers will start out with, I guess, easier victims that are younger, that are more vulnerable, victims that he can control.
My name is Chris Pedretti. I was 15. I was a kid, just a normal kid, cartwheels in the front yard, and really not a care in the world. It was not ever even a thought that our world might be unsafe.
So it was a week before Christmas. She'd been left home alone.
I was supposed to go to a high school dance, and it was the last day before Christmas vacation. I put a pizza in the oven, and I went to go play the piano. I remember hearing a noise, and I stopped playing and listened. Didn't hear it again. No, it was nothing. So I kept playing. It was very shortly after that, probably seconds, that he approached me.
She turned around and she saw a man in a ski mask.
I froze. The brain stopped thinking at that point. I mean, I just went straight into survival mode. I don't remember thinking at that point anything other than kind of turning into a robot. Just do what he says, do what he says. It was like Chris had left the body, and it was just the body left.
That individual led her to the back patio. She tied her up.
I didn't know about rape. I certainly didn't know about sex. What he did to me, what he took from me, I can't ever get it back. He kind of ruined my childhood. You know, he took it away.
Everybody knew something was going on, but nobody knew exactly what.
The sheriff decided that we would hold community forums. I had no idea there were going to be several hundred people that would show up.
If we have a gun, could we shoot him? Knowing what I know about this man, if I had a gun, I definitely would shoot him. And I would not shoot to injure, I would shoot to take care of him.
He liked this. He liked the police being on edge. He liked the town being on edge.
I have a gun, but I still don't feel safe being, at home alone.
Law enforcement was bracing for more attacks as his rampage of violence continued. His tactics were changing, and no one knew what he would do next.
So I have to admit, I'm scared to death.
The young girl made one bad move after another. Her attitude was much too inviting. She should never have stopped to window shop at night.
In the 1970s, when a woman reported rape, she was shamed, she was blamed. Often she was ostracized by her own community.
Rape cases really weren't considered serious. They were misdemeanor. You had to make an arrest within a year, or else they were not prosecuted. Even if an arrest was made, the defense was always it was the victim's fault.
Rape was such a prevalent crime back in those days that there were multiple serial rapists operating in California.
217 were reported last year. That's about one every day and a half.
In the Bay Area, you had the stinky rapist who smelled like diesel fuel.
I had pillowcase rapist. You had the key car rapist.
When the East Area Rapist became active in Sacramento, he quickly upstaged all the other rapists in the area because of how terrifying his MO was.
Concern over rape is mounting in this community.
There was panic in the city of Sacramento. The fact that they couldn't catch this guy just ignited the city in fear.
No one knows where or when he'll strike again.
They were getting guard dogs. They were putting in alarm systems in their homes.
Have the dog in the house, the big dog.
The worst thing is not knowing. All you can do is take every possible precaution and then hope that he gets caught before he gets to you.
Every day in the newspaper, it was number 8, it was number 10, it was number 15, 20. It just kept going on and on and on.
It seemed like every time investigators thought they were getting close, he would disappear. But he kept attacking again and again.
He was elusive, like a puff of smoke in the night.
Detective Carol Daly wanted this serial rapist behind bars, and she was relentless in her pursuit of him, but constantly frustrated by the fact that they couldn't catch him.
The officers in this department are working on this case are frustrated because there's just no evidence to give any firm lead. We're doing everything humanly possible to catch this man.
He was a phantom.
Descriptions ranged pretty widely. One person thought he was Hispanic.
And now all of a sudden, he's blonde hair, blue-eyed. There are like 8, 9, 10 drawings of him. And they have completely changed.
The best descriptions that we had were his height and his possible weight. We knew he wore a size 9 shoe.
When the police were taking the victim's statements, many of the women described his penis as being very, very small.
We said, all right, if he is so under-endowed, we went to a doctor who specialized in what I would call infantile penises to see if he had any patients that came in. And we didn't have any luck there.
It's a very serious situation. I think it's very dangerous. The last thing I think of when I'm going to bed is I look at the doorway in my bedroom and I think that he could be standing there.
Detective Daly was following every lead.
We filled out a long background form for the victims. Where did they go to school? What did they look like? What age were they? What was their build? There was no pattern among any of the victims because he was just prowling. He would see them and follow them home.
Margaret Wardlow, she was just 13 years old when she was attacked by the East Area rapists.
Margaret was probably the strongest young victim I have ever talked to.
Growing up in Sacramento was great. Where we lived was ideal. It was right next to the American River. Go down there with my dog after school, go fishing. Totally felt safe.
Margaret had a curiosity about her. She wanted to know about the East Area rapists.
I was a reader of everything I could get my hands on that had to do with this individual. Like, what was making this guy tick? Why was he doing this?
she herself became a victim. I believe there was a pre-wired strength in her mind that helped her survive this attack.
It was a school night, just my mother and myself. I went to bed at like a regular school night hour. I was awoken about 2:30 in the morning with a flashlight in my face. I thought it was a joke. I thought my mom had asked him to like come in and wake me up and scare me or something.
As he tied her up and then went into the mother's room, Margaret knew that either her or her mother were going to be the victim.
The rapist tied up her mother and put plates on her back as a warning device.
He did that with so many of the victims when there was more than one person in the house. If he heard anybody moving, he was right back and told them, don't move, I'm going to kill you, I'll kill you.
Putting the dishes on someone's back, he knows he has to do something, either hurt them, flee. So as much of the bravado as he's trying to convey, he's scared of the physical confrontation.
A little voice inside of me said, you know, you get out of a lot of stuff, Margaret, but you're not going to get out of this one. The whole time he'd been threatening me. He'd been saying, do you want to die? He wanted fear. He wanted to see fear in me.
This is your psychological sadist. He is enjoying controlling that woman like that.
This guy was so beyond the pale, and that was why Michelle was so interested in him, is because he was so frightening.
The way he walks around people's houses and the way he destroys them and sort of hangs out and eats, there's something so psychologically fascinating about that to me. It's like he got to the emotional center of people's lives and just wanted to destroy that.
Michelle caught the bug. She started going down the rabbit holes in this case. At this point, instead of writing a book, she was investigating the case.
I'm obsessed. It's not healthy. I know the strangest details about him. I know his blood type. I know his penis size. He vaulted fences. He escaped foot chases. But I believe it's the rare moments when he was human that will be his downfall in the end.
As time went on, this East Area rapist started to crisscross Sacramento, attacking women home alone or women with their kids in the middle of the night.
He seemed to be expanding what his capabilities were when he was carrying out these crimes.
He became much more aggressive, and his tactics. He did more horrible things than I can even describe.
This tells us that the offender is adapting and learning as he is committing crimes. He really messes with people's minds, both the investigators and the victims.
Part of the thrill of the game for him was a kind of connect-the-dots puzzle he played with people. He stole 2 packs of Winston cigarettes from the first victim and left them outside the 4th victim's house. Junk jewelry stolen from a neighbor 2 weeks earlier was left at the 5th victim's house. It was a power play, a signal of ubiquity. I am both nowhere and everywhere. You may not think you have something in common with your neighbor, but you do. Me.
Michelle started as a blogger talking about cases that no one else was paying attention to and trying to get people motivated to look at those cases.
The case dragged me under quickly. Curiosity turned to clawing hunger. I was on the hunt, absorbed by a click fever that connected my propulsive tapping with a dopamine rush. I wasn't alone. I found a group of hardcore seekers who congregated on an online message board and exchanged clues and theories on the case.
Citizen sleuths, they are ordinary people that go to work, they go home, they put their kids to bed, and then they go on the computer. And they spend hours and hours trying to solve certain crimes.
My name is Paul Haynes. I was Michelle McNamara's research collaborator. When I first began learning about the case, there was a specific forum dedicated to the East Area Rapist. It was the most active forum on that website.
Paul Haynes was a writer living in Florida, and Michelle recognized that he had a great proclivity for digging into old archives and things. It was a case that a lot of citizen detectives got into because there were so many clues.
Earons wasn't a supervillain. He was a man, a guy with habits and traits and preferences that, with enough examination, should shine like Hansel's breadcrumbs in the woods.
My name is Kay Gilbraith, and I call myself a researcher. I started seeing patterns emerging to me where I became convinced it was solvable, because all of the crimes had common bonds.
He was leaving ligatures at the scene with this particular knot.
He would eat food out of the victims' refrigerators. I was spending every waking hour trying to find men who fit the criteria. And it was at that time that I first connected with Michelle.
It's a fascinating community. I had been on those boards for a while following the story because everyone had such great information.
Michelle's quest was to get this case solved. She just had an abiding curiosity in letting the details lead us to the perpetrator.
The East Area Rapist would target not people, but neighborhoods. You can see the proximity of these homes to green belts like drainage ditches and creeks and canals.
We believe he used the canal as an escape route, which ran along the back of so many properties. He was a great escape artist.
These are passageways that this killer used to surveil the residents unseen, cloaked by the darkness of these green belts.
He was able to look over those fences, look into those homes, look at what time people ate dinner. I mean, he knew what time the husband left.
The Sacramento Sheriff's Office has invested more than 40,000 man-hours in the search for the East Area Rapist.
Sacramento would have a helicopter up in the sky, and they all knew it was because they were chasing the East Area Rapist.
It was terrible. It was terrible to hear that. Well, he didn't like it either. And it turns out that he served in Vietnam. He left Sacramento because of that helicopter. And then these things started up in the East Bay of San Francisco.
There are two things known about the rapist. One is he has never been caught in a home where there was a man present. The other is he's never been in a home where there has been a big dog.
The East Area Rapist worked on challenges. Everything he saw in the paper, if we said he didn't do something, he did it the next time.
When the newspapers reported that he was just attacking single females, he took this as a challenge.
At attack number 16, he started to attack with a man present, and then 2/3 of the attacks he does since then has a man present. He is purposefully choosing couples.
My name's Gay Hardwick.
My name's Bob Hardwick, and we've been married 41 years this August. Happily married 41 years.
Bob and Gay Hardwick were a couple living in Stockton, California.
We had picked out a home in one of the little picture-perfect tree-lined streets. We were just happy in our new home, living together. The day of our attack was March 18th, 1978, and we were attack number 31. We had gone out to dinner and a movie, normal Friday night, and we came home around 10 o'clock and went to bed. Later that night, we were awakened by very bright light right in our faces and a voice saying, "Wake up, wake up."
The attack on Bob and Gay Hardwick was much like all the other attacks in that he confronted Bob and Gay when they were in bed. He ordered her at gunpoint to bind Bob.
Nothing you can do when there's a .357 Magnum pointed
at your
head.
He then bound Gay. He retied Bob,
turns him over, puts the plates on his back as a warning device.
Things would go silent for a period of time. And then as soon as they moved, he was right in their face. Move and I'll kill you.
Ultimately, he moved Gay into the living room where he sexually assaulted her.
You're convinced at that moment that this is not a full human being that you're dealing with.
He can not only humiliate a woman who's about to rape, but he can also completely, in his mind, emasculate her partner. putting him in a position where he is helpless and has to listen to what's going on in a different room.
These attacks are happening in the macho 1970s, $6 million man.
We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man.
Oh, talk to me, good buddy.
And Burt Reynolds, these are the icons. And the men were not looked at as victims. They were looked at as just being weak for not being able to protect their wives and their girlfriends.
I never talked to anybody about it over the years. I just wanted to put it out of my mind,
It was, we're going to get through this. We're going to get back to normal. And you don't ever really make it to normal.
It was tough, but I loved her, and I said we're going to get through it.
Our home never felt the same again. Every surface that you could think of was covered in fingerprint dust. It just looked like a smoke bomb had been set off in our house. It was contaminated and ruined for us.
He wasn't out attacking people on lovers' lanes or in parks. He was attacking people where they feel the most safe, in bed with their partner in their home. And he was able to say, you know what? I have so much power, I can take all of that security away and devastate your life.
Why couldn't they catch him? Somehow, he was always one step ahead of law enforcement, and they wondered, could he be one of us?
After the East Area Rapist would terrorize these women, sometimes he would call them and taunt them.
Hello? Hello?
This rapist did not stop with just the assault of that night. He terrorized them their whole lives.
This is that psychological sadist at work. He is getting off on continuing to cause fear in his victim.
I'm Michelle McNamara of TrueCrimeDiary.com. Larry Crompton is a retired lieutenant for the Contra Costa Sheriff's Department. He worked on the Rapist Task Force in the 70s.
How optimistic are you that he may be caught one day?
Very, very optimistic.
I had worked many crimes while I was on the department, but none of them were really like this. I knew what these people went through, and I knew what the family was going through. I couldn't let it go. And for many years, it was me. What did I miss? What did I do wrong? Why didn't I catch him?
Helicopters, roadblocks, citizen patrols taking down plate numbers, hypnotists, psychics, nothing. You were a scent and shoe impressions. Bloodhounds and detectives tracked both. They led away. They led nowhere.
X shows up down in Modesto in June of 1978. He attacks a couple down there. And then 48 hours later, he's up in the town of Davis, over 110 driving miles away, and is attacking a UC Davis co-ed there.
Early Wednesday morning, the infamous masked man made his 44th attack on a young couple living in Mission San Jose.
It was as if he knew what police were doing. And all along, many of the detectives who were working the case thought that maybe he was a police officer or military. And ultimately, That turned out to be true.
You should see me coming.
One of the things that's important to remember when you're looking at Joseph D'Angelo is he actually graduated with an associate degree in police science.
He had told Bonnie that his aspiration was to join the California Highway Patrol.
You should see me coming.
He studied evidence and he studied crime scene.
He went to Northern California and he applied with the Auburn Police Department and was hired there. And then that's when he started his rapes.
He actually started out committing crimes as a teenager. At some point, he even blew up a dog with a firework, killed the dog while he was committing a residential burglary.
You should see me coming.
It makes sense that somebody who has a need for control, wants to be in power, would be attracted to a position that allows him to have that every single day.
When I was working the cases, I thought he's got to be in law enforcement.
The first clue was in attack number 3 in Sacramento. He had gloves on to protect from fingerprints, and he's got a gun in one hand and a padded baton.
You had better catch him. He is going to kill. He wants to kill.
It was never enough to commit the horrible crimes. It always had to be, and let me do something more.
We all want to think that we would recognize a serial killer based on how this person looks.
I wonder if he was out stalking his next victim. I don't know, because everything seems so normal.
The scariest aspects of serial killers is they don't look different.
From the very beginning, I knew DNA was going to solve this case.
Police had been sitting on this genetic fingerprint for 4 decades.
Holy smokes, this is like the big break.
He's been living there under everybody's noses.
This is the Golden State Killer?
I just want to tell you, buddy, to rot in hell.
Michelle McNamara was a true crime blogger.
She was a citizen detective and a true crime writer.
She was talking to her publisher about writing a book that didn't have an ending.
My interest in crime has personal roots. The unsolved murder of a neighbor when I was 14 sparked a fascination with cold cases. What gripped me was the specter of that question mark where the killer's face should be. I need to see his face. He loses his power when we know his face.
When I'm puzzling over the details of an unsolved crime, I'm like a rat in a maze given a task. The world narrows, the search propels. I felt in the truest sense of the word gripped. I had a murder habit and it was bad. I would feed it for the rest of my life.
I considered Michelle McNamara a friend. She impacted the Golden State Killer case. One way we're able to keep on investigating the case is to have public interest, to have the online interest, and she helped push that.
On a sleepless night last July, I Googled a description of a pair of cufflinks he stole. Then a jolt of recognition. There they were. I bought them immediately. The best thing to do, I knew, was to turn the cufflinks over to an authority on the killer.
As soon as I saw those cufflinks, I thought, this is pretty astonishing. I photographed those and sent those to surviving victims because it was potentially a very good lead in the case.
Unfortunately, the cufflinks didn't pan out. The victims looked at them and they weren't the cufflinks that were stolen.
And she was devastated. I don't know if Michelle was convinced she could solve the case, but I believe that she was convinced she could make a difference and that she wanted to do it for the victims.
He forced the woman at knife point to tie up her boyfriend, then he tied her up and raped her.
The East Area rapist has struck 40 times in the last 2.5 years, and he hasn't been caught yet.
He started inflicting real physical pain on the victims, like punching, giving black eyes.
One of the most sadistic things I think that he would do would be to say to them, I'm going to cut off a piece of your wife and bring it back to you.
We knew that he was becoming more and more angry.
As fear in the community intensified, Detective Carol Daly held regular public forums.
One thing I want to emphasize, ladies, is for you not to be polite. If you are going to defend yourself, you injure him enough to incapacitate him in any way that you can.
I started working with these cases, and I thought, if I can talk to one of the people that deal with these rapists, maybe I can get into the head of what I'm looking for. Vacaville Medical Center is where they have rapists that have been convicted.
The men were asked what they thought was motivating the East Area rapists.
The mere fact that he ties his victims up has to have him completely submissive. You can sense the conquest he had.
You're not what you think you are, and you won't accept it, so you strike out to prove to them that you are, but in reality you aren't. And until you face that, you're going to keep on going and going.
If I'm willing to kill you, the first move you make, you're going to be dead.
The doctor told me, you had better catch him. He is going to kill. He wants to kill.
He first becomes a burglar, and then he progresses to sexual assault, and then proceeds to escalate to murder.
The East Area rapist disappeared from Northern California in July of 1979. He showed up in Santa Barbara in October of 79, and shortly thereafter, he starts killing.
The Pacific Ocean was warming up, an inviting churn of white caps making its way towards soft sand and an endless line of 100-foot palm trees. Golden teenage boys with blank hair and effortless muscles headed for the water with their boards in a gait the locals called the Surfer Bounce. This was Santa Barbara's magic time.
Dr. Offerman was an orthopedic surgeon. He had begun dating a psychologist named Alexandra Manning.
On the morning of December 30th, 1979, some friends of Robert Offerman's had shown up at his condo for a tennis game. There was no answer at the door.
I went in the sliding door and looked around the living room.
On the floor, there were Christmas ornaments that had fallen off on the ground.
Some balloons right by the sliding door, which I thought he would leave it there, so we knew something was wrong. So I took a right towards his bedroom, and that's when I saw Miss Manning on the bed. He was on the floor.
Offerman and Manning both were shot and killed.
It was the holidays. As authorities processed the crime scene, they stepped around a turkey carcass wrapped in cellophane that had been discarded on the patio. They concluded that at some point the killer had opened the refrigerator and helped himself to Dr. Offerman's leftover Christmas dinner.
It was never enough to commit the horrible crimes. It always had to be, and let me do something more. Let me go into your refrigerator and eat your holiday meal. The level of depravity that this man had and the execution of it was despicable and shocking.
Larry Crompton, who led the EAR task force in Contra Costa County, reached out to Santa Barbara investigators and told them this sounds like the East Area rapist that we've been dealing with.
When I called Santa Barbara and talked to the lieutenant and said, I heard that you had a double homicide, would like to know about it because we think it's our rapist that is down there. And he said, don't know what you're talking about. Haven't had anything like that. Nope.
Law enforcement agencies weren't necessarily as connected as they are now. I think there was still this thought that these are isolated instances throughout California.
And that was it. It was so frustrating.
I am sure that Larry Crompton called many jurisdictions because he truly believed that the rapist would move on and become a killer.
Santa Barbara is an enclave of rich people. You've got Ronald Reagan. You've got people that are worried about their property values. They don't want news about a double murder in a house going wide. Pretty soon it gets off the front page.
He gets a taste for not only murdering people, but murdering them after these prolonged, terrifying times in their homes.
In 1979, a new and terrifying chapter. He starts a killing spree.
2 double murders in Gallia, the 1 double murder in Ventura, the murder in Irvine, and the double murder in Dana Point.
The rampage of violence was brutal and unstoppable.
4 horrible murders within a 6-block radius in a suburban middle-class neighborhood.
We knew it was the same person, but we couldn't prove it.
Profilers of that day said, I know of no one who does what this offender does.
I thought once he started killing, there's no way he can stop, and he's going to continue to do it.
Most violent criminals smash through life like human sledgehammers. They're caught easily, but every so often a blue moon surfaces. A snow leopard slinks by.
After 1981, we don't have an attack for 5 years.
Well, I think people slow down in life. You don't have that sort of energy to be prowling. Like, you literally can't be out at 3 a.m. like running across roofs because you're not 18 anymore.
I don't believe that his sexual deviances went away, but I can believe that he found other, less risky ways of satisfying those urges.
Could he have moved out of the state, out of the country? Could he have died, got medicated? I mean, I don't know.
In 1981, Joe D'Angelo became a father. The first of his 3 daughters was born. The second of his 3 daughters was born in '86. And then his 3rd daughter was born in 1989.
He had a wife who was a lawyer. He lived a middle-class existence.
He sent all his girls through Montessori schools, and he would take them to their different sports events, the horseback riding, the roller skating.
We all want to think that we would recognize a serial killer based on how this person looks. And yet, so often, this is somebody who's living in the community, who knows his neighbors, and I think that is one of the scariest aspects of serial killers, is they don't look different from other people.
My sister and I, Melody, used to take turns going out and babysitting while Sharon was in school. And I didn't start thinking about it till after he was arrested. Because when they started showing all these dates, I'm going, oh my goodness. I wonder if he was out stalking his next victim. I don't know.
It's been 5 years with no more rapes or murders by Joseph D'Angelo.
For some reason, he runs across beautiful 18-year-old Janelle Cruz and can't help himself and kills her.
Janelle was kind of a shy girl. She was very pretty, very popular.
The brief life of Janelle Cruz was no less tragic than her death. Her biological father was long out of the picture.
Her parents had gone to a cruise with her 6-year-old brother, and she was staying at the residence alone.
And for the first time, left my daughter alone, because that was another thing that I never did, because I was worried that if I was gone, that something might happen.
Janelle Cruz had had a friend over to the house and heard noises in the backyard.
They got up to inspect that, saw nothing.
And sometime that night, Janelle was confronted by an intruder. She was raped, and then she was bludgeoned to death.
And I got that telephone call that every mother and any family member is just devastated by.
The Janelle case just felt like such an outlier because he had decided to go after couples, and then he had stopped for a really long time, and then he attacks Janelle. And then that seemingly is his last attack.
Some think you died or went to prison. Not me. I think you bailed when the world began to change.
In the 1970s, there was no DNA.
The investigators had evidence but couldn't connect the crime scenes. They needed the science to catch up.
DNA didn't enter the forensic landscape until about 1986, 1987.
It would take 15 years for DNA to finally link the Northern California East Area Rapist series with the Southern California homicides, as all being done by one man.
I was immediately on the phone to Larry Poole down at Orange County Sheriff's Office, and we're talking about, holy smokes, this is like the big break.
But detectives still had no idea who he was.
I got a little excited maybe in the first 18 to 24 months, but over the years, I chronicled and logged over 8,700 suspects in the investigation.
After 5 years, we got no match, and after 10 years, we got no match, and we just were not getting a hit.
When people have asked whether it worries me that the killer may still be out there, I wave dismissively, pointing out that he'd be much older now. He can't hurt me, I say, not realizing that in every sleepless hour, in every minute spent hunting him and not cuddling my daughter, he already has.
Michelle McNamara was a mom, married to actor Patton Oswalt, investigating this case and working on a book. Patton describes her as staying awake at all hours of the night, would not put down her computer, would not put away the files.
At the same time, struggling with her writing and publication deadlines, and she began self-medicating. I actually see her as being his final victim.
I got an email from a friend of Michelle's, and he told me that Michelle had passed away that morning. I think I went completely numb.
I eventually learned that she had fallen asleep and didn't get up.
According to the medical examiner's report, Michelle died from a combination of fentanyl, Xanax, and I believe Adderall. And that's when the magnitude of her loss hit me.
I immediately thought, what can I do? I can help finish this book. When Michelle passed, we decided at the end of the book, what are the strings that she left us to get us out of this maze? It was genetic genealogy.
From the very beginning, I knew DNA was going to solve this case.
Thousands of pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and only one person knew what it was supposed to look like. That one person wasn't Michelle. It was the killer himself.
It has now been 40 years that one of the most prolific serial killers in American history has managed to elude police. The man known as the Golden State Killer has been linked to 50 rapes and 13 murders. Police are frustrated and running out of leads.
I have no path to go on this investigation. None of the tips are coming in or anything that I'm excited about, so I'm floundering.
When Michelle passed and me and Paul were working on the book, we talk about what are the strings that she left us to get us out of this maze. And it was genetic genealogy.
Forensic genealogy was something that Michelle was excited about, and that seemed like the most viable, direct pathway to this offender's identity.
Hi, and welcome to 23andMe.
Companies like Ancestry.com and 23andMe had already been using genetic genealogy for years, allowing millions of customers to spit into a tube and use their DNA to discover family roots and long-lost relatives.
Ancestry.com searches the world's largest online family history research.
Is a growing number, particular of adoptees, are realizing these sites that are really created for learning about family history can help me start to figure out who I'm biologically related to. To help people to find their biological mothers, to find their biological fathers.
How are you?
To find siblings, to find cousins.
It wasn't too long for people to realize, wait a minute, what if we use the DNA of criminals to try and identify their second cousins or third cousins and try to narrow it down from there?
I start learning how this technology could be used. We become blown away at the power of it. And then we recognize this is the way we need to go. But then there was a concern as to whether we had enough DNA. I had consumed all the East Area Rapist DNA, doing all the testing I had done over the years.
And he found a pristine DNA sample going back to the 1980 murder of Lyman and Charlene Smith in Ventura County.
A second sexual assault kit in the coroner's office that had never been opened.
To my knowledge, there are no other medical examiners who make duplicate rape kits.
In March of 1980, Lyman and Charlene Smith were found bludgeoned to death in their bed.
It was a horrific scene that I will never forget. I'd arrive at the scene with my little suitcase, a tube rack, dry ice, and a microscope. I always made duplicate kits, and both kits were identical.
That turned out to be a gold mine for us because that second kit had sat in the coroner's possession for 38 years untouched. And so these swabs collected from Charlene Smith's body were pristine.
Police had been sitting on this genetic fingerprint for 4 decades, waiting for the science to catch up. Genetic genealogy had only been used to solve a criminal case once before by a woman named Barbara Ray Venter.
I've always liked puzzles. I used to love playing Clue when I was a kid. What I've discovered is that law enforcement are pretty big gossips. And so they were all sort of talking amongst each other. And apparently Paul was talking to the detective on the other case.
And I was like, how did you do that? I called Barbara up and I explained, I'm working a case. It's an old case. I don't tell her what case it is. But could this be done to identify this unknown offender?
So Paul Holes was able to take that DNA and convert it into a DNA profile, which is basically a number. And he used this no-frills genealogy website called GEDmatch.
And I just uploaded the Golden State Killer's profile and allowed the GEDmatch servers to do their magic and produce the list of people that potentially shared some DNA with my offender.
We were all logging in several times a day to see if the matches are there.
Then all of a sudden, he started connecting to some distant relatives. We're talking 3rd, 4th, 5th cousins.
So we immediately knew that we were going to be building a lot of family trees to sort out who he was.
We're now trying to identify common ancestors from this list of people who share DNA with the person we're looking for. And we end up spending 4 months building family trees.
And unlike if you were to upload your DNA to a website and try to build out a family tree from yourself being the beginning point, this is reverse engineering a family tree. So you start with a wide swath of potential relatives, and by a painstaking process of elimination, you start cutting down that pool. Narrow it down, narrow it down, narrow it down.
Genealogy testing had indicated that our offender was of European descent.
40% Southern European, and a number of the matches that we had were with people who had Italian surnames.
Once it came down to that final pool, that's when the real detective work began. You had to hit public records. Things like marriage certificates, birth certificates, grave site markings.
So now we only had 6 men on the list. So now they had to be a certain age, they had to be in Northern California, and they had to be related only through the maternal line to our crime scene DNA. And at that point, we then had one other piece of information that we hadn't applied yet, and that was eye color.
She looks at a separate tool on a related site that suggests that their suspect had blue eyes and was bald.
The FBI then pulled the California DMV records for those 6 men. Only one had blue eyes.
Joseph D'Angelo.
Joseph D'Angelo.
Joseph D'Angelo. After 4 decades and countless hours of detective work, it's an emerging technology, genetic genealogy, that finally gives investigators their strongest lead yet, a name.
Who is this guy? I need to start drilling down on him, and I'm now within a couple of weeks of retiring. So I'm trying to find out as much as possible, as fast as possible, about Joe D'Angelo.
He's not in any of the criminal databases, so police start putting together a case to either eliminate him or prove he is in fact the man they're looking for.
Physically, he was within the specs of what we were expecting for the Golden State Killer. Born in 1945, a little bit on the older side, but most certainly within that 1940 to 1960 range.
Investigators started zeroing in on Joseph D'Angelo, and they started digging up things about his past.
He goes into the Navy. We know he is stationed in San Diego. We know that he spent some time overseas.
Joe D'Angelo returned to Sacramento, began working with the Auburn Police Department.
He had a nickname on the department. It was Junk Food Joey. He would always have a Coke in his hand, a bag of chips, a candy bar. He really violated people's space all the time. Get kind of close to your face and always be touching you.
He had been fired from Auburn Police back in 1979.
He had been observed shoplifting a can of dog repellent and a hammer from a Citrus Heights drugstore. He was accosted by the clerk. He was subsequently arrested.
Auburn Police Chief Nick Willick had to fire D'Angelo at the time.
And the chief said when Joe was put on administrative leave, he had threatened to kill me.
I immediately remembered back my daughter, being afraid. A short time after he had been fired, she said, there was someone looking in my bedroom window with a flashlight.
She said he got up and ran outside. That man was gone, but there were shoe impressions all around the perimeter of his house.
But there's another huge piece of the puzzle they had been investigating in relation to possible suspects, and that piece also seemingly falls into place in D'Angelo's story, Bonnie.
There's a newspaper clip from an Auburn journal about the engagement, and there's this picture of a young brunette. She's 18 years old.
Announcing his engagement in 1970 to a woman named Bonnie Colwell.
Remember, Bonnie was one of D'Angelo's early girlfriends who broke off their engagement. So suddenly, Detective Holes and others are like, wait a minute, could this be Bonnie that we remember following early on in the case?
And of course, Bonnie was significant due to the victim in attack number 36.
While the East Area Rapist is literally raping that victim, he is crying and he's saying, I hate you, Bonnie, I hate you, Bonnie, over and over. I'm now within days of retiring. It's like, okay, I've got to go boots on the ground on this D'Angelo.
More and more things connect and click. Right place, right time. Let's go see if this is the guy.
I'm now my second to last day at work, and I go, I have to go see this guy, where he's living. And I park on the curb directly opposite from D'Angelo's house. There's a car in the driveway. I'm pretty sure he's home. And I'm sitting there, and I'm wondering, what's the likelihood, really, that this is the Golden State Killer?
A day before his retirement, Paul Holes literally has the suspect in his crosshairs. It's been a 24-year hunt, but he uses restraint and turns in his badge the next day.
It was a tough decision to drive away from that house that day. I was upset. I was like, I didn't solve this case before I retired.
The Sacramento Sheriff's Office picks up where Paul Holes left off.
And so what they have to do next is conduct surveillance on Joseph D'Angelo. And what they're waiting for is an opportunity to collect his DNA.
And they secretly follow him to a shopping plaza.
But Joseph was not smoking, he was not spitting out gum. So what they had to work with was he had a car. They swabbed the door handle. And that gave them something that's called touch DNA.
They were able to pick up an initial DNA sample and some fingerprints from his car door.
I'm sitting in a Chinese restaurant in Colorado Springs, and my cell phone rings, and it's Lieutenant Kirk Campbell from Sacramento DA's office. You can absolutely not tell anybody about this. And at that moment I go, okay. And he says, the lab is excited about this.
It's mixed with DNA from other people, but it looks like it might be a close match.
But the Sacramento DA was saying, we want a cleaner sample.
So they stake out his house, wait for him to put out the trash.
He puts his trash out on the curb. They get a guy that comes and collects the trash.
They sneak over and pull tissue out of the trash bin and take that back to the lab.
And one of the items out of the trash had a single source male DNA profile that matched 100% the Golden State Killer's DNA profile.
I get this call from my chief deputy. I think his first words are you sitting down? And I asked him a million times, and I'm like, you better not be messing with me. He goes, they're shaking, Anne-Marie. They're shaking at the crime lab.
They got a match, but now they have to get the suspect into custody. So they call Paul Holes back to assist with the operation.
There was concerns about how he would respond if this did not go smoothly.
I can imagine they were prepared for every scenario. This is somebody who has been a sophisticated, a diverse, sadistic killer.
A law enforcement team now gathers outside D'Angelo's home for the takedown. He and his wife have been separated for decades, and he's living with his daughter and granddaughter.
The hope is to get him away from his house in order to be able to do it safely. So at a certain point, D'Angelo's over off to the side of his house. It looks like a prime spot. And then we just hear over the radio, go.
You can run on for a long time, run on for a long time.
He's been called the East Side Rapist, the Visalia Ransacker, the original Night Stalker,
run on for a long time,
and the Golden State Killer. Today, it's our pleasure to call him defendant.
Sooner or later, God will cut you down.
That bombshell arrest, that former police officer.
72-year-old Joseph James D'Angelo.
He's been described as one of the most prolific serial killers that terrorized California for decades.
Sooner or later, God will cut you down.
The arrest of Joseph D'Angelo dropped like a bomb. All these years, hiding in plain sight.
Oh my God, he's living in Sacramento? He's been living there under everybody's noses for all this time? It was stunning.
It's a moment when you realize that 40 years of work by a lot of folks to bring some answers to some family members was becoming real.
It's just unbelievable. After all these years, they got him.
I feel I reverted right back. That part that I was so successful at tucking away in my brain, that door opened. I was shaking.
It was hard to process. I know after I got the call, the tears welled up. Thousands of nightmares and thousands of sleepless nights have come to a rest.
It was just something that was on my mind for all those years. Want him caught before I die.
We could finally put a face and a name to this masked individual that was terrorizing all these communities back in the 70s and 80s.
Joseph D'Angelo's first arraignment in court.
Please make sure your cell phones are silent.
Was a complete madhouse. It was a zoo. In the front rows were family members of victims and victims themselves.
We were all super, super nervous.
I start sobbing and sobbing, and I couldn't stop.
Joseph James D'Angelo.
And then that moment, Joseph D'Angelo in a red-orange jumpsuit that says prisoner on the back rolls in a wheelchair, hunched over, his hands handcuffed.
This is the Golden State Killer? This old man? And he looks so harmless. And I think that is exactly the impression that he wants to create.
Is Joseph James D'Angelo your true and correct legal name? I'm Sorry? Yes. You have.
At that moment, you could hear gasps. There was something about his voice that clearly brought back years of pain and fear.
I thought, this has got to be a big act.
In the week prior, he's riding a motorcycle at high speeds. He was walking around just fine.
And within a day of his arrest, he's all of a sudden bound to a wheelchair.
But then the jail surveillance camera tells a very different story.
He's climbing up on the bunks and getting up on the vents and cleaning things.
Doing exercises in the jail cell.
He's a master of disguise. He used that during all of his crimes, and he is continuing to use it, but now in a different way.
Victims are still processing it. And the big question, why? Why did he do all of this?
What really did transpire? Why he became this person, this predator?
I think that's the million-dollar question.
Mr. D'Angelo would like to make a brief statement.
I'd like to get into his mind to talk to him and find out what brought him up to where he was.
There is no recipe for a serial killer. We can see all of these markers or all of these risk factors along the way. We have a physically abusive dad.
And a relative reveals a bombshell in that HBO docuseries All Be Gone in the Dark, detailing how Joseph D'Angelo, at the age of 9 or 10, allegedly witnessed his younger sister being sexually assaulted.
She was 7 years old. The very thing that happened to my mother is the very thing that my uncle went and did to other women. How sickening is that?
It would be so easy for us as forensic psychologists if we could kind of go, a person is abused, and therefore they become this kind of offender.
The vast majority of people don't turn into serial rapists and serial killers. So it's hard to feel the sympathy for these offenders or to say that this event made him do it.
Bonnie certainly is not responsible for D'Angelo's actions, and the breakup did not cause those actions.
Sentencing today for the so-called Golden State Killer.
Former police officer Joseph D'Angelo Jr.
committed rapes and murders all across California.
This is the matter of the people's state of California versus Joseph James D'Angelo.
This will be the first time that these people have seen him since the nights that they were victimized.
This is a network of people that have come together that never knew each other, but share one thing in common.
On March 18th, 1978, Joe D'Angelo attacked us while we were sleeping. He kidnapped me from my bed. He raped me repeatedly.
I want you to look at me. You bound my wrist and ankles. You blindfolded me. Remember that?
At 3 different times that night, I thought I was going to die.
No 13-year-old should have to find out what a rape kit is. My family couldn't hide the agony in their faces.
What matters is that you will spend the rest of your life in prison, and I survived.
I just want to tell you, buddy, to rot in hell.
You will forever be known as a repulsive coward who hid behind a mask of evil. The devil can keep you company in your prison cell as he gnaws away at whatever soul you have left.
Mr. D'Angelo would like to make a brief statement.
I've listened to all your statements, and I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt.
Mr. D'Angelo is sentenced to a total of 11 life without the possibility of parole sentences, plus an additional life sentence, plus an additional 8 years. The survivors have spoken clearly. The defendant deserves no mercy.
In the end, we may have lost a battle one night, but we've won the war of life. We're nearing the end of a very long journey here.
It shows that justice doesn't have a time limit. You can still find answers decades and decades later if you're willing to do the work. Inside Michelle's computer, she had a letter, and it was her writing directly.
Out here in the western Colorado countryside, the wide open spaces can stretch for miles. In a place this remote, it might seem unlikely that two lonely souls might find each other and a second chance at love. But that's exactly what happened here, until one warm summer day when the peace of this place was shattered by unimaginable violence.
911, what do you have to cover your emergency?
My husband is dead.
You what?
My husband is dead.
This was a big story that shocked a small town.
There's stuff everywhere. He has blood under his head.
There was a scare in the community, you know, that something like that could happen. We don't have a lot of crime here.
No, what's got to do this?
Murders just didn't really happen there, especially murders with so many twists, and especially to a well-respected businessman that everybody really loved.
Alan Helmick was a fixture in this community, a man who dedicated his life to helping others achieve their dreams, getting small businesses off the ground and families into their first homes. In fact, he was known as the broker of Main Street.
Alan Helmick was a prominent businessman. He had a mortgage business. Everybody respected him. He was firm, but he was very friendly.
An avid outdoorsman, Alan took advantage of all western Colorado had to offer.
The western slope is just gorgeous. It really is where the west meets a bit of suburbia. And in Whitewater, people had these sprawling homes, very affluent, very safe.
How would you describe this town of Grand Junction?
We pride ourselves on our outdoor activities, our beaches, our wine industry. Great for families.
Alan had grown up in the nearby town of Delta and settled into Grand Junction to raise a family. What was Alan Helmick like?
You know, he was a good guy. He was a great athlete.
Bob Cacchetti was Alan's friend and longtime accountant. Good instincts?
Yeah. Oh, he was a risk taker. He was a gambler. We went to Vegas once, and I think by the time we checked in the hotel, he was borrowing money. He recovered, you know.
He was a good business person. He took a lot of chances, but it seemed to more than not played out and worked well for him.
And definitely not one to shy away from attention.
One time we were in Mexico. A bunch of us were down there on a fishing trip, and the mariachi band came around the restaurant. Alan handed him a few dollars and asked for the trumpet from one of them, and he joined him on the trumpet. And he was really good. It was like, wow, where'd that come from?
So it didn't surprise those who knew Alan that after his first wife unexpectedly passed away, he wanted to meet new people. So he decided to try something different, dance classes. And his instructor is this woman, Miriam Giles.
Oh, yeah, he came in one time and we were doing something and he says, yeah, I just love dancing.
Miriam was a very good dancer, a good instructor. She had me dancing, which was a miracle.
Alan, I believe, kind of had that love at first sight feeling and really wanted to pursue Miriam and did so on the dance floor.
Miriam was 10 years his junior, but Alan didn't let that discourage him. He described meeting Miriam in an interview he did shortly before he died.
She didn't want to date me, but I persisted. She was my dance instructor, so I could go on a cruise and not be club-footed. And we ended up becoming pretty compatible.
Alan seemed reborn. He was so very happy.
They ended up falling madly in love and got married within 2 years of knowing each other.
They would talk about how they would go out on their boats late at night to watch the sunsets together, have an evening cocktail, and just how they felt like they had just found a true partner late in life. It was just like a little fairy tale come true.
It's June 10th, 2008. Typical, beautiful Tuesday morning in Whitewater. And Miriam leaves to go run some errands. Alan was going to get his car serviced, and then they were going to meet up for lunch.
She stopped to get cigarettes, stuff for her horse, even check on a prescription for him.
She went to City Market to pick up his prescription and found out that he hadn't dropped it off. So she called him, could not get a hold of him.
When Miriam gets to the Chinese restaurant, she calls Alan again to see if they're gonna meet, but Alan never shows.
Miriam, after 15 minutes, decides to leave and head home. Miriam gets home. It looked like the house had been ransacked.
At that point, she sees Alan laying on the kitchen floor on his back with blood under his head. She calls 911 immediately. She's sobbing. She's frantic.
It's all bloody.
He's all bloody?
Yeah.
Where's he bleeding from?
It looks like the back of his head. It looks like somebody's been through here.
We knew patrol had been dispatched out to what was reported as a robbery, and then we had a deceased person on scene.
Robin Martin is a detective who worked the case. When the first officers arrived on the scene, they find Miriam distraught and kneeling over her husband.
Alan was on the floor in the kitchen. It looked like he had been shot in the head, and we had a bullet casing next to his body. They did a very quick security sweep to make sure there wasn't a suspect still on scene.
There's no one in the house. As they conduct their sweep, deputies notice drawers pulled out in the kitchen and a trash can tipped over in Alan's office.
In the newsroom, we have police scanners, and we heard the call go out saying there was a robbery homicide out in Whitewater. I packed up my camera gear and went out there immediately. What I saw when I got out there was a scene that was taped off. Multiple officers going in and out of the house, conducting their investigation.
A lot of media attention?
Yes.
This was a big deal in that town, I guess.
It was. Very much so. And everybody wanted to know what was going on.
My wife and I were getting ready for bed. 10 o'clock news come on. The headline was, there has been a homicide in Whitewater.
The Mesa County Sheriff's Office is called out to this Whitewater home.
I kind of jokingly said to my wife, I says, oh no, I wonder if that's Alan. And lo and behold, it was Alan.
What they find is 62-year-old Alan Helmick dead, shot in the head.
It's Detective Work 101 that you start with the people closest to the victim. But in this case, Alan's wife, Miriam, was running those errands, expecting to meet Alan for lunch. She even had the voicemails to prove it.
Okay, Alan, this isn't funny anymore. I've been sitting here in front of the Chinese place for 15 minutes, so would you call me?
Things did not add up. Everybody knew him. Everybody loved him. Who would do such a thing?
The Mesa County Sheriff's Office is called out to this Whitewater home on a report of a possible robbery. What they find is 62-year-old Alan Helmick dead, shot in the head.
After finding her husband Alan dead in a pool of blood on the floor of their Whitewater, Colorado home, Miriam Helmick is brought in for an interview with the Mesa County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you for coming down and helping us get to the bottom of this. We appreciate it. It's Miriam, right?
Investigators are trying to solve this murder. The first 24 to 48 hours are critical, and she is the first person you want to talk to.
Miriam was at our office. They, as we do with all, what were you doing today? Can you go through your day for us?
I had some errands I needed to run today, so he was we would meet later, so he got in the shower and got dressed. Okay, what time did you leave?
And what did she tell investigators about her whereabouts that morning?
She started listing off everywhere she had been. She told us that she was calling Alan several times, was getting his voicemail.
Hi, Alan. I just want to let you know I'm going to Walmart. If you're going to meet me for lunch, let's meet at the Chinese buffet. Love ya. Bye.
Then what happened? I still hadn't heard from him. And then I went from there to Orchard, Mesa City Market to pick up his prescription.
Okay. What time is it now?
I probably got there about 10, around 10.
Hey, Alan. You need to turn your phone on. Question for you. When I pick up your prescription, they said that you hadn't been by yet. So are we still going to be able to meet for lunch? It's not like you to not call me, so give me a holler. Thanks. Bye.
And since he hadn't called me back, I thought he was caught up somewhere to me. So I left him a message and told him I was going home in case he decided to meet me there anyway.
Okay, Alan, this isn't funny anymore. I've been sitting here in front of a Chinese place for 15 minutes, and you're never late. So would you call me?
Miriam's entire morning is accounted for. She even offers up proof of where she's been.
I think I have all the receipts in my pocket.
She actually went from one end of the valley to the other end, and we were able to track her movements not only by her receipts but by her cell phone interacting with cell phone towers.
She was tested for gunshot residue?
Yes, she was tested for gunshot residue.
Her clothes were collected?
That's right.
They take those items to check them for any kind of gunshot residue or blood spatter that might indicate Miriam had something to do with this. And those results came back negative.
She's also caught on several surveillance cameras throughout the morning. Miriam seemingly has an airtight alibi. So naturally, investigators are anxious to ask her who she thinks may have wanted to harm Alan.
Did he have any enemies, any problems with any of his contracting work going on, any disputes? Would he share that with you if he did?
I think so. He shared a lot with me.
Miriam said Alan was generally well-liked, but detectives also knew he'd been a local mortgage broker. Could he have turned someone down? Maybe had a disgruntled former client or co-worker who was out for revenge.
He did not like lying or dishonesty. He would fire people for that, but that was respected.
And he had started his own business here decades earlier. Alan had married his high school sweetheart, Sharon, and had 4 children through 37 years together. But on New Year's Eve, 2003, she died of a sudden heart attack. How did that affect him?
Friends said that he was quite depressed and wasn't doing that well.
And soon afterward, he takes up dancing.
He was encouraged to try a new activity.
When Alan met Miriam, I know she had a policy of not dating her students, but Alan was pretty relentless.
Kieran Wilson was a local journalist in Grand Junction, Colorado, who covered this case. Just days after Alan's murder, she spoke to an emotional Miriam.
I met him teaching how to dance, and I didn't really like him while he grew on me. But he was such a gentleman, and he was so sweet, and just love him to death, you know.
Miriam had been dealt her own difficult hand in life, having faced not one but 2 unimaginable tragedies back in her home state of Florida. Chris Giles is Miriam's son. Grew up in Jacksonville, mom, dad, a sister. What was it like?
It was good. Typical kind of for family. You know, me and my sister were super close. Mom kind of let us to do our things, but was also there to kind of shepherd everything and help us through.
In 2000, Miriam and her first husband, Jack, were devastated when their eldest child, 23-year-old daughter, Amy, died suddenly after an accidental overdose.
How did the family cope with this, with her death?
We didn't really talk about it. After a while, things kind of started going downhill.
And Jack just, he kind of, he just could not live without his daughter. It just tore him apart.
And then 2 years after your sister dies, tragedy strikes again.
Yeah. My dad took his own life, and I woke up to the gunshot.
Miriam's husband, Jack, shot himself while he and Miriam were in bed.
Mom kind of runs out the door, and she's hysterical, just losing her mind, like a scream I've never heard before in my entire life.
Well, it was a dramatic change in your family. Yeah. The loss of father.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out how to deal with those things. You got to deal with the pain. You got to deal with the hurt. You know.
She turned to dancing after all this.
Yeah, it was kind of her escape, where she kind of felt normal.
And then your mom decides to move to Colorado.
Yes.
And not long after is when Alan Helmick walked through the door of the dance studio where Miriam worked.
Everybody's really happy for Alan. He seemed real happy. Yeah, another chance at love.
Everybody said that her and Alan were kind of a good team for dancing. They were a real couple.
So Alan and Miriam decided to build a house together, and they chose the community of Whitewater. The house was set pretty far back from the road, and it was about a 40-acre property.
Your mom goes through all this, seemingly happy again, and all of a sudden, this happens.
911, what do you have to have your emergency?
My husband is dead.
How did you learn that Alan had died?
She called me. Called me and told me that he'd been shot. Still kind of another shock to the system.
Another loss.
Yeah, another loss.
So far, investigators don't seem to have much to go on. But about an hour into that police interview, Miriam says something that would raise the eyebrows of any homicide detective.
In Delta. And somebody tried to torch our car.
So the car actually got torched in Delta?
Had Alan's killer made an earlier attempt on his life? After Alan Helmick is found murdered in his Whitewater, Colorado home, his wife Miriam is interviewed by investigators. And she tells them about a shocking incident that happened just 6 weeks earlier.
Somebody tried to torch our car. They took a stick or a big like restaurant skewer and put some kind of gauze on it and stuck it down in the gas tank and lit it.
Here in this parking lot, less than 2 months before he was murdered, there was an earlier attempt on Alan's life. Someone tried to set his car on fire. It looked like something straight out of a movie, but for the Helmicks, this brush with death was all too real.
Tell me about that incident. What happened that day with the car?
Well, Alan and Miriam had driven to Delta for the closing on their business. They were selling Alan's title company to a purchaser, and they had finished the transaction and had parked out front.
Collected a check?
And collected a check for over $100,000 for the sale of this business, and got in the car.
At that point, Miriam went in to use the restroom.
And while she's in the business, the car starts smoking.
Alan looked in the mirror and saw that the vehicle was on fire. He got out of the vehicle, went to the back of the car, and a wick was in the gas tank.
When Miriam comes out, she hears that Alan's screaming at her to bring her to get a fire extinguisher, that the car is on fire.
Upon arrival, we found a vehicle that had a wick in its gas tank and had been set on fire.
You ever seen anything like that before?
No, I had not seen anything like that.
It was pretty obvious someone had tried to start that fire.
Correct.
So if someone was trying to set the car on fire, it didn't quite work.
Correct. The fumes did not ignite, fortunately.
Were they able to glean anything else from the crime scene?
No security cameras from the surrounding businesses, no video footage whatsoever of what had transpired.
The police both questioned Miriam and Alan after the car incident.
You have no idea who would do this to you or Alan?
No, not at all. I mean, it's just weird. I don't know. We've been hashing it over last night. We can't figure it out.
Alan didn't have a lot of enemies, and so who would want to kill Alan in that kind of way by blowing up his car? That was a real mystery.
Do you know anyone that would have a problem with you?
I do not. Over the years, active as I was in business in this area, there's going to be some unhappy people because I turn people down on loans from time to time. But I think I was well respected in the savings and loan industry. There are two people that have had a problem with it.
Okay, who are those two people?
Alan mentions two bankers with whom he had prior dealings, but quickly downplays their potential involvement in the arson.
I can't imagine them being vindictive because they're too much exposed.
Right.
They did stupid things, but they're not stupid people.
Investigators will ultimately determine that those bankers are not involved, but they're exploring every avenue, even asking Alan if he thinks it's possible Miriam could have been responsible for the car fire.
Oh, God. No, I don't think that.
Not at all.
That would be terrible. No, why would you do that?
So during the interviews with officers, Alan and Miriam had mentioned that Miriam would not hurt Alan or harm him because Alan was worth more to her alive than if he were dead.
What would she gain if you died yesterday?
What he would get is a mess. She gets nothing that was created prior to the marriage.
Alan was convinced that it wasn't Miriam, and if the investigators in Delta had any suspicions of Miriam being involved in this, Alan was the first to defend her and say she wouldn't do this.
And besides, what reason would Miriam have for trying to kill Alan? He'd always gone out of his way to make her dreams come true with lavish gifts and gestures.
His goal in life was to make me happy, and he took care of me. His favorite saying was, have fun like hell. So anytime he knew I was going shopping or he gave me money or anything like that, he would say, have fun like hell.
Alan loved Miriam, and he was always happy to dote on her, buying her lavish gifts like her own dance studio and even a horse training business, always intent on making her lifelong dreams a reality.
I met Alan and Miriam Helmick at my farm because they wanted to buy some horses to start a horse breeding operation. It was always her passion to start riding, and Alan was just said, I'm going to give this dream to you.
Horse training centers, it's extremely difficult way to make a living. Most of those never pay off. It's a labor of love.
You told him it was not a good idea to invest in this horse.
No, and I said, it's a good hobby, but it's too expensive.
And his desire to open up that dance studio came from where?
Oh, it had to be Miriam.
You had your concerns about him investing in these things.
Oh, I told him, I said, get your head up your ass.
Sounds like he really wanted to make Miriam happy.
I think so.
Alan was always very good with his finances, but with the horse business and the dance business, they were hemorrhaging money.
As investigators began digging into Alan's finances, they found that bad business decisions had left him in a serious financial hole. But were his money troubles enough of a reason for someone to want him dead? Or could the murder have been more personal?
Does Alan Jr. know where you guys live now?
Yes, he's been there.
He's my wayward kid because he's sort of a bum.
Investigators will soon learn about some long-standing Helmick family tension.
He said he shows up when he's not announced. You call the cops.
One week after his untimely death, Alan Helmick is laid to rest.
When we were at Alan's funeral, Miriam sat in a pew in the very front, of course. She was crying, looked real despondent. Alan's family, his daughters, were just heartbroken and devastated. Alan was a really good dad to those kids. He was like their rock, and hit them real hard.
What's it like around here without him, I guess?
Very quiet. I'm missing my right arm. I feel like I'm just missing my life. I don't know what to do.
In the days after Alan Helmick's murder, investigators had diligently chased down leads and conducted interviews with people in his orbit, but they hadn't announced any suspects. There was, however, one thing they were pretty sure of. This was not a robbery gone wrong. What stood out to you?
It was odd. You had property still in the house that was, you could assume, was of value that a normal burglar would take.
Like what?
Computers, phones, jewelry. The normal type of stuff you would expect somebody to steal.
There were drawers pulled out evenly. There was a trash can knocked over. There were drawers that were open that wouldn't hold valuables anyway.
And most of the drawers were open in the kitchen, right?
Correct. In the kitchen, throughout the house. It just did not sit right. It did not feel right. It was looking staged.
And Alan's autopsy confirmed that he probably had not walked in on anyone committing a burglary.
There was no indication that Alan had tried to fight off his attacker. It was very clear that he was caught by surprise as he was shot right in the back of the head.
Do you think Alan knew his attacker?
I don't know.
But there was someone in Alan's life that Miriam had told investigators he'd been wary of. At one point, Miriam starts pointing fingers at Alan's son, Alan Jr. What did she say about him?
Miriam talked about how Alan and Alan Jr. never got along, and that there was some falling out between the two of them and some animosity.
Tell me more about Alan Jr.
He's had run-ins with the law.
What was the relationship between Alan and Alan Jr. 3 to 4 months ago?
Same.
Same
It's been
distance?
that way for many years.
Okay, kind of.
Very
stay apart.
distant.
Okay.
There's some real animosity there.
Does Alan Jr. know where you guys live now?
Yes, he's been there.
And after that car fire 6 weeks earlier, Alan had also mentioned his strained relationship with his son to those investigators.
He's my wayward kid because he's sort of a bum. And you can't fix that by just handing him money.
Alan's personal issues with his son, coupled with the fact that he may have known his attacker, was enough for detectives to bring Alan Jr. in for an interview.
Come on in and have a seat. And
Right here?
Yes, that's fine.
He's the kind of guy that if he saw something that wasn't right, he would give you his 2 cents about it, and it would not be nice. It would be sharp.
He just told it as it is.
Yeah, it's sharp. Yeah, right out.
Sure.
My dad's like, you're out. You know, you're
right.
You're I like you because you're doing this.
Alan Jr. goes on to say that his father had effectively cut him off financially.
Your dad wouldn't give me a dime.
Okay. Did you ask?
No, I'm sure that I had back then. And then he repeated, hey, this is something you need to learn to take care of yourself.
When asked, Alan Jr. insists he would never hurt his father, and he had an alibi. He was working out of state at the time of the murder.
Where were you Tuesday? Because everybody's been asked that question.
I'm not an ignorant human being.
Right.
And I would be offended if you didn't ask those questions. In fact, I would be angry with you if you didn't ask them in that way. Would have been working on the computers. I would have been at the hostel on my computer.
In Seattle.
Alan Jr. was cleared as a suspect.
That's right. No evidence linking Alan Jr. to having anything to do with Alan's murder.
So investigators are back to square one.
That's right.
There were no suspects. We didn't know if this person could come back.
I never thought it would happen here or anything like that would ever happen here. It's just always quiet around here.
Are you scared that this person might come back?
I don't know. Yes and no. I don't want to leave because I'm closer to him here.
Had there been a murder in my home, would not want to stay there, especially not a few days after. But she said it was her home. She said she felt closer to him there.
But if Miriam says she felt safe enough to stay in her and Alan's home, that was about to change.
And then 2 weeks after Alan's murder, Miriam finds a dramatic discovery under her doormat at the house.
And she goes, what should I do? What should I do? And I said, you get off the phone and you call the police and you get away from there.
Was the killer now coming after Miriam?
Miriam Helmick came home last Tuesday to find her husband Alan shot and killed. Her quiet Whitewater neighborhood was turned upside down.
The baffling murder of businessman Alan Helmick had left a community desperate for answers. Detectives were taking a close look at everyone in Alan's life, even close friends like Ed Benson, who was brought in for an interview.
I've known Alan, I don't know, a long time.
So you're good friends, well, is it safe to say you're good friends, or?
We're friends, we're not, we're good friends. So.
Strange interviews with the sheriff's department, the investigator. You go in and we're friends, but yet we were treated as like suspects.
Did you guys ever have any bad blooded between you two or anything like that?
Not from my standpoint, not at all, no.
Any enemies that you know of without Alan telling you, or any, said rumors that, Alan's not a good guy or anything like that?
Never.
Okay.
Never.
And there was that mysterious car fire just weeks earlier. Everyone wondering, could the two incidents be linked?
Take it all that they may be connected?
A good possibility. I'm just letting them figure that out. It was, it was a shock to us. But he never mentioned anything about anybody that would do something like that.
As days passed with no suspects in custody, Miriam became convinced she was being watched. She reported seeing a white pickup truck with a driver she didn't recognize circling the property, leaving her to wonder whether the same people who killed Alan were now coming after her.
I talked to Miriam almost on a daily basis, and in a lot of our conversations, she talked about that she thought somebody was trying to come into the house and she was scared for her life.
Miriam starts reporting that weird things have been happening around the house. She's saying that she will come home and a door that she knows she locked is unlocked.
She was finding lights on. She was finding medicine cabinet doors open that shouldn't be.
She saw one or more suspicious vehicles that she didn't know who was linked to them. And mind you, this is a very small area, only a handful of homes out there. And you recognize most of the vehicles that are driving in and out of the area.
But the strange happenings at the home weren't the only thing worrying Miriam. With Alan, the sole breadwinner, gone, there wasn't any money coming in. During her police interview, Miriam had explained to investigators that they had a prenup.
She really didn't have anything without him. She didn't stand to gain a lot.
I did not have any legal claim to anything that he owned.
Okay.
It was pretty cut and dried.
Miriam's financial situation was fairly dire. In fact, she started selling off some of the property they had together.
She said she had no money, all the money was in Alan's name. So I said, well, let me buy the horses back, I'll pay your debt off to the other trainer. That way it'll give you some money for what you need to live on.
And then, as Miriam is struggling to stay financially afloat, an ominous message shows up on her doorstep.
She was with her friend Penny. They had just gotten back from shopping. She goes up to her front door and she sees an envelope sticking out from under the mat. And when she opens that envelope, there's a card inside that says, "Alan's first, you're next. Run, run, run."
She collapses to the ground, becomes very distraught.
Marion calls me and she's frantic. And she goes, what should I do? And I said, well, you need to hang up the phone and call the police and get out of there. I said, because somebody could be there trying to hurt you.
The greeting card is turned over by Miriam to her lawyer, who then notifies the police.
I was given a copy of the card. It said, "To the grieving widow," in block letters. On the front is a picture of a middle-aged female, and it said, "Insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result." And then inside, Allen, spelled A-L-L-E-N.
Misspelled.
Misspelled. Your was also Y-O-U-R. A grammatical thing, okay.
Whoever left it there had cut out the barcode, seemingly in an effort to obfuscate anybody tracing that card, where it was purchased, who purchased it, that sort of thing.
It looks like Miriam might be the next target.
Maybe there is somebody out there who really wants to kill Miriam as well.
After Miriam received the threatening card, she left and she went back to Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, where she's from. She moved in with her son, Chris.
How was she coping?
Oh, it was not good. You know, there was some brokenness there. I just knew that she was in a bad place. I was trying to help her through that stuff.
What did you make of that?
I think that's not that abnormal. She didn't have a lot to her name, so she needed to figure out how to live without Allen.
Back in Colorado, that bizarre greeting card gives police something they have been desperately searching for: a solid lead.
I had actually seen this card before.
Just coincidentally, you had seen the card?
It's kind of a unique front on a card.
It's at this city market that investigators finally get the break they've been waiting for. The person who bought that card with the threatening message from Miriam is caught on surveillance tape here. And just who that person is will take everyone by surprise.
You see clear as day.
Then a bombshell discovery from decades earlier.
The piece of evidence that was really the smoking gun, almost literally, was recovered from that lawn in Delta.
What investigators find buried here will crack this case wide open.
What we had was a man who had led a good life and he ended up murdered.
I saw Alan on the floor. He was cold and gray.
People were in disbelief. People were scared.
I held his hand for a few minutes and tried to make some sense of it all.
Miriam comes home. There's a handwritten note, and it says, "To the grieving widow."
Alan's first, you're next. Run, run, run.
It looks like Miriam might be the next target.
The killer was now after her.
You want twists and turns? There's no shortage of that here.
I met Miriam on a dating site. She wrote, saw your profile and loved it.
She was moving on.
Even my girls were like, she's dating already.
She's trying to get on with her life in a new state. But another incident with a gun comes to the surface.
I heard the shot. Mom kind of runs out the door and she's hysterical, just screaming. Like a scream I've never heard before in my entire life.
Could what they find buried in this yard be the smoking gun? On June 10th, 2008, 62-year-old respected businessman Alan Helmick was found dead in his home by his wife Miriam.
When we arrived, Alan was on the floor in the kitchen. He had been shot in the head, and we had a bullet casing next to his body.
The place had been ransacked, but nothing seemed to have been taken.
They realized fairly quickly that this was a staged attempt to hide what really happened.
A tragic ending to what appeared to be a perfect second chance at love.
Both Alan and Miriam were widows. She was his dance instructor for ballroom dancing lessons.
I'm missing my right arm. I feel like I'm just missing my life. I don't know what to do.
Miriam told police she'd been running errands all morning and provided receipts to back up her alibi.
I went to Walmart.
Okay.
I needed to buy some shirts.
Police were at a loss as to who would want this well-liked businessman dead.
Alan had some enemies, but nobody was going to kill him.
And as investigators began to dig deeper, the story took a frightening turn.
Miriam comes home. There's a handwritten note, and it says, "To the grieving widow, Alan was first, you're next. Run, run, run."
It looks like Miriam might be the next target.
The real killer was now after her.
After Miriam received the threatening card, she went back to Florida, where she's from.
When Miriam came back to Florida, I was so surprised. I just couldn't believe it. She gave me a call, and I got a lot to tell you, she says.
In Florida, Miriam turned to old friends for support, reconnecting with her former neighbor, Aline Lee.
Miriam didn't have any money. She said, all I've got is just the clothes on my back. I have nothing. I said, I can get you clothes. My girls are your size. I bought a gas card for her, and I gave her a bag of jewelry. I just felt bad for her.
While Miriam tries to restart her life in Florida, detectives in Colorado are continuing to work the case, trying to figure out where that threatening card she received came from.
They got in touch with the manufacturer of the card. He was able to tell them where these cards were sold.
I checked the Hallmark. I checked the Hobby Lobby. We finally get to the city markets. I contacted their loss prevention guy. They found 2 sales. One person paid in cash, didn't know who that person was. The other one was with a credit card. So we had a name, and then he found one more purchase. He called me, and he's like, I've got video.
That store uses VHS tapes?
That particular store was not as up-to-date as their others, and they did use VHS, and they used it over and over and over again. So by the time we got this tape, it was kind of delicate. It was her. She was wearing the same style of shirt that she had walked in with her interview. It was just a different color combination.
You see Miriam going first to the area where the cards are sold within the city market, and then to the cash register where she pays for it. Clear as day.
So now it appears that Miriam, the grieving widow, seemingly afraid for her own life, had actually sent that threatening card to herself. But when investigators confront her about this, she says she has an explanation.
What Miriam told them is that she felt like the police weren't paying enough attention to the case. They weren't doing much. And so she wanted to kind of jog that with this card.
That was probably not the best decision to be made. Not what I kind of would have done in the situation.
She felt she needed to do this.
She felt she needed to.
Did that greeting card incident change the way you and investigators approach the case?
What innocent person would do this? Obfuscate, complicate a murder investigation with this ruse?
But remember, when she was interviewed by investigators, Miriam said she had very little to gain from Alan's death.
We did a prenup. So everything his is his. Everything mine is mine. He has more than I do.
Okay.
With no clear motive in sight, the Mesa County Sheriff's Office turned their attention to Miriam's past, learning about that double tragedy she and her family suffered years earlier in Florida.
There was the sudden loss of her daughter, and then a shocking development with her first husband.
While Miriam and her first husband, Jack, were in bed, Jack shot himself in the head. Now you say, okay, she's had not one, but 2 husbands. shot in the head.
Was there a common thread?
And they were both married to Miriam Helmick.
Police ruled it a suicide. There were some strange circumstances, though. Things like he used his right hand to pull the trigger. Jack was a lefty.
Investigators then start looking back at your father's death.
Yes. I woke up to the gunshot.
You were just down the hall.
I was sleeping on the couch in the family room, and I heard the shot. Mom kind of runs out the door, and she's hysterical, just screaming. Like a scream I've never heard before in my entire life. There's certain things in life that can't be faked.
Did you question her?
No. I know one of the things came up is that my dad was left-handed. Well, my dad learned how to write left-handed because he had a cast on his arm when he was younger, so he was ambidextrous. He could use his right hand too.
And you had seen him depressed before death?
Yeah.
Was the death of her first husband, that case, ever reopened?
No, it was ruled a suicide.
But with clouds of suspicion gathering over Miriam about the death of her second husband, she does something unexpected.
I met Miriam on a dating site.
A millionaire match?
Millionaire match.
Your profile described me to a T.
Investigators are starting to wonder if they could actually have a black widow on their hands.
I mean, she was finding the husband, she was looking for the money, and then moving on.
With suspicion now mounting that she may be the person who killed her husband, Alan, Miriam Helmick does something unexpected. She goes looking for love again.
Miriam took me to this website for dating men that had a lot of money. I mean, we're talking about very rich. And she picked out this one guy from Orlando. Had a lot in common with her. He liked to dance, and he loved horses, and all this stuff.
I met Miriam on a dating site. I owned a dance studio for about 6 or 7 years, and then I had a human resources company for about 20 years. I did very well for myself. Miriam had contacted me first. She wrote, "Saw your profile and loved it. I can dance, any dance, and I'm pretty good at it. Your profile requirement described me complete to a T."
She says, "I'm going to go down there." I said, "You're what?" I mean, this is just months after Alan had died. Even my girls were like, "Ah, she's dating already?" And I said, "No."
We met at TGI Fridays. She was very talkative, very nice. We hit it off really good, actually.
Miriam even opens up about the recent loss of her husband.
Miriam had told me that her husband had died of some brain disease. She said that we both felt he was going to die soon anyway, and there was no big deal. We were just waiting for the time. She handled his death very well. I just thought to myself, okay, well, big deal.
Miriam may have been trying to move on and put Alan's death behind her, but back in Colorado, investigators are taking a closer look at her, starting with her alibi from the day of Alan's murder.
Went to Orchard Mesa Market. I went to Walmart. I think I have all the receipts in my pocket.
She was able to pull out the receipts from her pocket of everywhere she had been that morning. Just didn't seem natural to us.
To show up at the police interview with a pocket full of receipts, suspicious or just thorough?
I would say very odd. That is not a normal thing.
Is that really your first thought, to explain where you had gone in great detail and keeping the receipts?
What did investigators make of her alibi?
Well, they thought it was suspicious, didn't make a lot of sense to them.
And investigators weren't the only ones with suspicions about Miriam.
M-I-R-I-A-M. Helmick, Helmick.
Remember that local reporter who sat down with her after Alan's murder? She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with her story.
Do you have you planned the funeral yet?
It's tomorrow at 10.
I start to get a weird feeling as she's talking.
I wanted to get back into dressage and decided I should have a dressage horse, so he bought several.
It was all about her. And these interviews are really supposed to be about the deceased.
His goal in life was to make me happy. He never wanted me to worry about anything or have any problems or anything, and he took care of me, everything.
As I was speaking with her, it went from feeling really bad for her to being suspicious.
Are you scared that this person might come back?
That was it.
Yes,
That's
no.
the look.
I don't want to leave because I'm closer to him here.
She started looking to the side. It's just like when you're talking to somebody and you know that they're lying because of nonverbal cues that they have. When I left that house, I've never scurried away from a place so quickly in my life. I was genuinely scared.
And while Miriam is talking to the media, investigators are talking to those closest to Alan. You continue with the investigation. Actually, you interview Alan's children.
Yes. Right after Alan passed, we were speaking to the daughters, and they had expressed concerns of an inability to get a hold of their dad.
He's been completely out of character, drastically since January. It's odd for my dad.
You've seen him change. You've seen him change his character.
And maybe not so much see him change his character, but through her, I can't even get to him.
He wasn't answering phone calls. He wasn't returning voicemails.
Hi, Dad. It's Portia. I hate to bother you so much. Just I haven't been able to talk to you, so things are piling up.
Hey, Miriam. This is Christy. I've been calling my dad for about a week, and I'm not hearing back.
And every time I call, Miriam answers. Before then.
His phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
His cell phone. Which I thought was weird. He always answered his phone.
It appeared that he was being distanced from them.
I'm like, well, Dad, is your home phone hooked up? He's like, no. I'm like, well, how does anybody get a hold of you? Well, Miriam doesn't want anybody to bother me.
And when they would call Miriam, there was excuses as to, oh, I'll have him call you back, or he's not around.
She certainly, in the days leading up to his murder, was isolating him from his children.
Alan's kids couldn't help but wonder why Miriam seemed to be keeping them from their father in the months leading up to his murder. Could it have been something to do with a sudden decline in his health?
Father's never sick. My father's like an ox. Mm-hmm. And he was, every time I would talk to him, he was sick.
And did he say what he was sick from?
He didn't know. I don't think he had a clue.
But he said he couldn't even stand up. He was so dizzy.
The more investigators dig, the more troubling details they uncover, like a gun that seemed to have disappeared from Miriam and Alan's home.
One of Alan's children said she specifically remembered seeing a .25 caliber pistol in his sock drawer.
They couldn't find that gun after the murder.
Police learn of a shooting incident that had happened outside this house decades before.
Could what they find buried in this yard be the break they need? Detectives will often say that when it comes to investigating, there are no coincidences. And for those working the murder of Alan Helmick, they were certain that attempted car fire just weeks earlier was somehow connected to their case.
This area is where I was dispatched to a car fire. We saw that somebody had placed a wick in the gas tank of a vehicle. We contacted the driver. We were speaking with him. We were speaking with his wife. As I started questioning both of them, I noticed she became a bit nervous. and she said that she wasn't feeling well, needed to run to the restroom. I watched her leave the back of the vehicle, not go into the restroom she just came out of.
Not right here.
Not right here where she just went to the restroom. She actually went across 4 lanes of traffic, which...
That's strange.
Very strange.
Did she ever come back?
Not while I was on scene.
She stayed over there?
She stayed over there.
When you were still here, you went into the ladies' room.
We did.
What did you find there?
We smelled the odor of gasoline. It was fairly strong.
Since investigators learned that Miriam had been standing at the trunk right before Alan discovered the fire, they decided to bluff him, telling Alan there was surveillance video of the incident to see if he thought his wife could have been responsible.
I watched the video.
Is she on there?
I'm asking you. What do you think?
No, is she on there?
I'm
Did
asking
she light
you
it?
what you think.
No, but I could be wrong.
We bluffed Alan, and he said he didn't believe it.
And you didn't answer my question. You looked at the video.
No.
Nice little flick there. If you'd seen her on the video doing it, I would have been shocked.
The crime scene reminded investigators of a movie scene.
After all the dust had settled, our investigators started thinking about what had transpired in Delta. They thought, this sounds like the car explosion scene in No Country for Old Men, which had just come out in the last year, and was a popular movie where the villain had created a distraction by lighting a magazine, sticking it into the gas inlet, and exploding the car.
As police are looking into this, they discovered that the Helmicks had rented that movie about 4 days prior to the incident.
Was this the smoking gun or smoking car?
It definitely was part of the investigation. Miriam was not charged with the arson in Delta because of the roadblock put up when Alan demanded the investigation be closed. He did not want to pursue it if we were looking at Miriam, and that he would not cooperate with the investigation.
And the detectives now investigating Alan's murder are still searching for any hard evidence that Miriam pulled the trigger. After all, they still hadn't recovered a murder weapon.
There was the issue of the firearm that was missing from the home. And in talking to the daughters, we knew that there should have been a .25 caliber Lorson in the house.
Because people had seen that gun there before.
Correct.
As luck would have it, there was an old Helmick family story from decades earlier of Alan's first wife's stepfather firing that same gun into the ground during a domestic dispute back in 1989. Could this gun, now missing, be the murder weapon?
There was some evidence that it had been in the house in the years leading up to the murder, and no evidence of what he would have done with that weapon. No evidence he sold it, gave it away, traded it. You know, where is this gun?
And then investigators bring in a metal detector into the case.
Right.
Detectives come up with a long-shot idea. Go back to the property where that domestic dispute happened back in 1989. Could they recover the bullet fired from that gun and compare it to the bullet that killed Alan?
I received a phone call from the chief investigator at the Sheriff's Department of Mesa County asking me if I would assist them in searching for a bullet.
Carol Quarles is a retired law enforcement officer who has experience using a metal detector to search for missing evidence.
So your reaction when they asked you to get involved in this case?
Oh, yeah, heck yeah. Anytime. Just call me. I love finding evidence.
And you started over here?
And I started working my way around. And then I just slowly worked my way around to about midway in the yard. And I hadn't found anything.
And they were getting nervous. The investigator said, well, maybe you're not going to find it.
Yeah, maybe the witness wasn't remembering things right.
Right. To which you said,
let me check over there in case the shooter shot into that corner of the yard. And so I walked over there, and it wasn't 30 to 45 seconds, and I had the bullet.
Where did you find that bullet?
That bullet was right in this area right here. It was an aha moment. I mean, it was, euphoric. That's the best way that I can explain it.
And they dug up that bullet that had been there since 1989. They were able to compare that bullet from the ground to the bullet that was recovered from Alan's headshot. And what we were able to determine was that the two bullets were consistent with each other.
The evidence is building up against her.
It is.
At this point, police believe that they have enough to arrest Miriam for Alan's murder.
But this is a woman who police believe orchestrated an attempted firebombing and shot her husband in the head in cold blood. Is she just going to go quietly?
She's being investigated for a homicide. You don't ever know that she doesn't have a gun. If she sees you and she's scared, knows what's going on, it's a real game out there at that point.
In the fall of 2008, just a few months after Alan Helmick's murder, Miriam was living in Jacksonville, Florida, attempting to move on with her life. But her past in Colorado was about to catch up with her.
I was a special agent with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement here in the Jacksonville field office. I got a call from Mesa County Sheriff's detectives, and they were investigating a homicide in Colorado.
Did you have an inkling that she might be a suspect?
It wasn't kind of until I was driving home one day and the Grand Junction police called me and said, is she living? I was like, yeah, she's with me. I don't know what's going on, but she's there.
And we sent 2 investigators down there with an arrest warrant.
They handcuffed her and set her right on the ground. She had a blank expression on her face, like a little bit angry looking almost.
6 months after Alan's death, Miriam is charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder for that car fire, and forgery. She pleads not guilty and is extradited from Florida back to Colorado.
What we had was a man who had led a good life and he ended up murdered, and there's a need to bring to justice the right person.
A year after being arrested and charged, Miriam Helmick goes on trial here at the Mesa County Courthouse. Prosecutors argue that the grieving widow is actually a cold-blooded killer.
Miriam Helmick standing trial for the murder of her husband was a huge deal. The courtroom was pretty packed. It was a bit chilling. Miriam did not show a lot of emotion. She didn't look like herself.
So why do prosecutors believe Miriam killed Alan? They argue the motive was as age-old as they come. Money. Financial motive was the critical part of your argument.
There were suspicious bank account activity where it appeared that Miriam had forged multiple checks from Alan's account. All told, she had taken about $40,000 out of his account through writing those checks.
But the defense pushed back, saying that Miriam had Alan's permission to write those checks, both as his wife and his secretary.
Banks had been calling, trying to get a hold of Alan.
He wasn't being available to his banker, something that had never happened before.
Now there was an urgency.
Right. In fact, the banker had reached out to one of Alan's daughters, and that was tension that was building.
Prosecutors put Alan's daughter, Portia, on the stand to testify about the way Miriam seemed to be isolating her father in the months leading up to his murder.
He was much less involved in my life. He was much more distant. I called him, and when I didn't get to his phone, I called Miriam's phone.
And when they would call Miriam, there was excuses as to, oh, I'll have him call you back, or he's not around.
If Alan was discovering that she had been taking money from him without permission, that was a possible motive.
How would he have reacted if he had found it?
Everything would have been over. You would have had our attorney on a hotline, and it would have been over.
And prosecutors argued that Miriam had tried to kill Alan not once, but twice. The first time in that failed attempt at blowing up his car. They called Miriam's horse breeder and friend, Jerry Yarborough, to the stand.
When I went on the stand, I was super scared because I knew my testimony was going to be not so good for Miriam.
Jerry told jurors about a conversation she said she had with Miriam after that failed car bombing.
She had said that she found out that a car won't explode if it has a full tank of gas.
And when she said that, what was her demeanor?
She laughed.
That catch you off guard?
Pretty much.
But the defense pointed out that if Miriam was after Alan's money, why would she try to blow up his car while he was holding that large cashier's check he had just received?
The piece of evidence that was really the smoking gun, almost literally, was the bullet that was able to be recovered from that lawn in Delta.
How pivotal was that in tying Miriam to the crime?
That was a nice piece of evidence because we didn't actually find the gun, but we had a story about the gun, how it was seen in the home. Now we have a bullet that roughly matches the bullet that was recovered from Alan.
But as Miriam's defense pointed out, roughly matched is not the same as a perfect match.
Couldn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Then the defense did something you don't often see at a murder trial.
Defense calls Miriam Helmick to the stand.
They called Miriam to testify in her own defense.
Once you got inside, what did you see?
I saw Alan on the floor. I dropped my bags and went to him. He was cold and gray. I held his hand for a few minutes and tried to make some sense of it all.
Miriam stayed on that stand for 2 days, denying that she had anything to do with Alan's murder. When prosecutors got their chance to cross-examine her, they pressed her on the infamous run, run, run card that she admitted sending to herself.
You were just acting at that time, weren't you?
Yes, just briefly.
You concocted a complete ruse to lead them on a wild goose chase away from you and towards some phantom killer out there, correct?
If they'd actually had contacted me or listened, then maybe I wouldn't have been at that point.
That was probably not the best decision to be made, but I think at that point she was probably broken, just emotionally and mentally broken.
That video really did undermine Miriam's credibility.
Showing her purchasing that card was very difficult for the defense to rebut.
After 16 days of testimony, the jury gets the case.
They come back with a verdict in 5 hours for a first-degree murder case. You just don't see that.
5 hours was very fast.
The verdict, guilty
on all counts.
There was a little bit of a sigh of relief.
You thought, good, she's going to get what she has coming.
She was sentenced to life without parole. I think that spoke volumes to all of the evidence, circumstantial or not, that was stacked up against her.
But Miriam says the jury got it wrong, and she had a lot more to say when we spoke in her first interview since being convicted. Miriam, are you telling me that your husband Alan started the car fire himself? Why would he do that?
First time she's spoken publicly since her 2009 sentencing. I asked Miriam about first meeting Alan back when she was his dance instructor in Grand Junction.
And was it love at first sight?
Well, not really, no, because I was there trying to work, and but he just never gave up. Let's just put it that way.
He was very persistent.
Yes, very.
And eventually you fell in love with him.
Yes. It was kind of hard not to. I mean, he's a very, very kind, very sweet man, and he always had your best interest at heart, usually.
Alan's kids say that you were isolating him from them in the months prior to his death. Was that true?
No. But he would get really pale during the day, and I would make him rest. And so I would take his phone away where he wouldn't ring so that he could get some rest. Because it seemed like they always called when he was trying to get a nap.
Next message. Hey, this is Portia. I'm starting to get a complex here because you guys have never not picked up your phone.
Our pathologist, Dr. Kurtzman, indicated there was evidence of advanced heart disease. So if he was not feeling well, it was probably attributable to the heart disease.
Prosecutors say that you fraudulently had written about $40,000 in checks on Alan's money, that he was about to find out, and that's why you killed him.
He could look up online anytime and see what was coming out of his bank account. Nobody stopped him from doing that. So anything that was written with his approval.
Did you steal any money from Alan?
No, I didn't take anything from him because everything that was put into the bank went into his bank account. None of it came to me.
Did you have anything to do with starting that car fire?
No, I didn't have any inclination to do it. But I almost believe that he started his own car fire.
You mean to tell me that Alan started the car fire himself? Why would he try to do that and possibly hurt himself?
Well, I don't think he thought about hurting himself. And it took me a while to wrap my head around that he would possibly do anything like that.
Miriam says Alan may have tried to set the car fire for the insurance money.
I started to wonder if he did, because as soon as he got his car home, he applied for the insurance on it.
It's a claim that's hard to back up, but Alan was adamant with authorities that he did not believe Miriam would ever try to kill him.
I had called Alan to advise him that I felt his current wife, Miriam, was trying to kill him. And Alan got upset with me and told me that Miriam would never do that to him. And at that point, he asked me to terminate the case.
What about the gun that was missing from your home and Alan's home?
I didn't know it was missing until this whole thing, so I have no idea how or where it went.
It had an unusual family history, that gun.
I know when I first met him, 2 years before that, I saw it when we were moving, and I asked him to put it away because I don't like handguns. I just don't. I already had to deal with that kind of thing. It was very unnerving to me. That was the last time I saw him.
Now, authorities also questioned your alibi, all the receipts that you had. It looked like you were trying so hard to create an alibi. Were you?
It's not uncommon for anybody to pocket their receipts. I had cash and receipts, so they went in my pocket. I've done that all my life.
It makes sense to us that she shot him before she ran the errands. Then she runs all the errands, and she creates an alibi for herself on purpose, intending to throw people off.
Miriam, did you kill your husband, Alan?
I did not.
Do you think you'll get out of prison someday?
I do, eventually, because I know that I'm going to keep digging, and I know that we're going to be able to put this together.
What do you think will prove your innocence now?
The fact that I had no GSR on me. I had no blood spray on me.
Wouldn't the blood spatter and the gunshot residue be easily washed off if you took a shower?
Well, you know, that's funny because when I went to the police station that afternoon, you could tell I hadn't taken a shower. There was even some dirt under my fingernails, pretty much from doing the barn that morning and helping him shovel out stalls.
So you had not washed anything off?
No, I hadn't changed clothes, nothing.
Miriam has filed numerous appeals with the courts. They've all been rejected, but she vows to keep on fighting.
It won't be over for anybody till it's over for me, and I do have hope. I know that I've been killing. Now that I'm on this path, I'm not going to lay down and die with it. I'm sorry, it's just not in my nature to do that.
How often do you think about him?
I think about him all the time. He was funny and say things that I remember. His biggest thing was, it's only business. Treat it that way. You know, he was fun to be around.
After the trial, did you see your mom again?
I did not. I have not seen her since the trial.
After so long, what did Miriam finally have to say to her son?
Don't forget, you're going to put on your jacket, too. We're not used to the 30-degree weather that's awaiting us.
No, we're from Florida.
Maybe different.
This past November, Chris Giles and his wife Kelly flew to Colorado for a much-anticipated visit to see his mom, Miriam, in prison.
So she's in the Dimmins Women's Correctional Facility. So it'll be the first time in probably about 15 years that I've seen her. I have not seen her since the trial.
Why not?
I think for one, I didn't want to have to just see her that way. See her kind of broken and see her in that situation. I was also kind of mad. I was mad that all this had kind of happened.
Over the years, one by one, Chris lost his entire family to different forms of tragedy.
It's just kind of a whirlwind, and then all of a sudden this happens.
That new husband dies, and then she's arrested.
Yeah. You're trying to figure out how to deal with those things, and you kind of got to deal with the pain, you got to deal with the hurt. Let's rock and roll. I was probably nervous like me, a little bit nervous, a little excited.
Our cameras were not allowed inside the prison, but Chris tells me that reuniting with his mom, while complicated, was also healing for him.
First thing she did was apologize.
What did she say?
As soon as we sat down. She said, "I'm sorry for everything I put you through." She said, "I'm sorry that we had to go through this." But still, once we got to the Alan part, she was firm in that she was innocent of all that stuff. And so we just hashed out kind of what had happened.
Do you believe your mother had anything to do with Alan's murder?
I do not.
With your father?
I do not, no.
Seeing your mom was a big step for you after all these years.
Forgiveness is a big thing, It's huge when you can work through that and go, I don't have to forget about it, but I can choose to forgive you for it.
But when it comes to Alan's family and friends, there are some things that they say they would rather forget.
I try not to think about the murder. I more like to think about the fun times that we had with Alan. That's those are good memories.
What do you think Alan would have wanted people to remember about him?
He was a lot of fun. This kind of guy you could, meet and have a drink with and have a good laugh.
He treated everybody with fairness and respect and gave a lot of love to those around him. Nobody wanted to hurt him except for his own wife. She ended up taking this man's life.
A good man was killed. I don't know whether justice is served or not. She's in jail, and apparently she's never going to get out. But he's still dead. You can't bring him back.
I think his legacy is that he was tried and true in the community. He did what he said he was going to do. Alan was truly loved by everyone that knew him.
My name is Jesse James. For 17 years, we have lived with the pain of losing our daughter, Holly. It's something that cannot be explained in words. Recently, I decided to write to the person responsible for taking Holly from us. I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure what I'm reaching for, but it just feels like I need to express my thoughts. Many, many people loved Holly, and you took her from all of us. I still have episodes of grief that I'm unable to control. Why did he choose Holly? I've decided to reach out and try to discover that.
So right now, I'm on my way to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. It's one of the largest military bases in the world. Some say that this base right here is America's first line of defense. I'm investigating a mysterious disappearance of an Army nurse. Her name is Second Lieutenant Holly Lynn James. When Holly fails to show up for her shift at Womack Army Medical Center, it causes concern because it's something totally out of character for any soldier.
I was driving back to Fort Bragg from Iowa, and I received a text from a friend at work asking me when the last time I heard from Holly was. It was unusual. Holly was very dependable, and it's just, you know, being an Army officer, it was kind of unheard of to not show up for work.
Her co-workers went to her apartment, and when they got there, they found that she wasn't there and it had been set on fire. So they called the police.
Pretty much as soon as Holly went missing, I heard about it. Our homicide team heard about it. It was very concerning. She had just sort of disappeared into thin air.
This is the face of the missing Fort Bragg soldier. Has not been seen since Wednesday.
Holly was driven by ambition, an unshakable work ethic, and felt a powerful call to serve her country.
A lot of us are military in our family, and she wanted to go out and do something great.
Holly's younger brother, Bo, a Marine himself, says that Holly had found her calling. As a nurse, were you pretty proud of her?
Absolutely, yeah. They're absolutely lifesavers.
She wanted to go to Iraq. I said, why would you want to go to Iraq, to the war zone? And she said, Dad, I just think I can help soldiers if I'm out there as a first responder in a war zone. I can do more good and help more soldiers.
Although Holly never served in combat and was ultimately stationed in the U.S., she was going places, and by age 23 had become a second lieutenant in the United States Army.
Even though I was a sergeant major, she was technically a higher rank than me starting out, you know, and I was pretty proud of that. They assigned her to the mother-baby ward at Womack. She just always wanted to be in the thick of things.
She was a floor nurse. She loved helping people all the time, and she really loved children.
Actually, at the time, Holly was raising a couple of children on her own, born from a relationship with her ex-boyfriend from her hometown of Dubuque, Iowa. Then in 2007, she met this 22-year-old Marine, Corporal John Wymunk, a combat engineer who was stationed along with her brother Bo at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. Colonel Kirk Cordova was John Wymunk's commanding officer.
He's a non-commissioned officer working towards being a sergeant and probably one of the best ranks in the Marine Corps. So he was very proficient, I can tell you that.
We deployed together. A lot of times we were looking for explosives or blowing things up. He was very good at our robots that we used for looking for explosives or setting them.
I was embedded in the war zone with the Marines in the invasion of Iraq in 2003. The level of danger was similar to what they experienced.
Marines continue to bring their heavy armor north.
And you realize just how intense their jobs really are. Why did you decide you wanted to introduce him to your sister, Holly?
Everything he said just seemed so funny. And I thought Holly deserved some humor in her life, too.
She outranked him. She was an officer, and he was a enlisted man, lower enlisted man.
The couple eventually married and shared an apartment together in Fayetteville, just outside the gates of Fort Bragg. Wymunk lived 2 hours away at Camp Lejeune, but would visit on weekends.
Holly and John seemed happy, seemed like a good match. Being a dual military couple, it's just that extra layer of complication. You're just apart quite a bit.
During Wymonk's deployment, Holly bridged the distance with heartfelt video messages.
I bought this camcorder just so I could talk to you. So I just wanted to tell you hi, and I love you, and I miss you. I'm very proud of you.
There was a number of videos that she had made for him, you know, and they were sweet.
I'm pretty excited. You'll be here in 2 months.
She would talk about, you know, how much she loved him, how much she was looking forward to him coming back.
I didn't talk to you, so I just wanted to send you a quick hi and let you know that everything's okay.
Just being a sweet gal.
Together, they were rising in the military ranks, newly married, full of hope, but everything would change on that terrible night Holly went missing.
There is still no official word on the whereabouts and the fate of Army Lieutenant Holly Wymonk.
Investigators speak with Wymonk, who says that he was hours away at Camp Lejeune and knew nothing about Holly's whereabouts.
My wife got the call at home, and they said Holly was missing.
Police and federal investigators are on the case. Crime scene tape surrounds the apartment complex.
I began to see reports on the internet. The first report I saw was the police there, the military there, and they were towing her car away from the apartment complex.
There was a lot of interest locally and nationally about what had happened to Holly.
I had reporters on my doorstep, and they were asking if I knew anything about Holly, what could I tell them? I think that's when I realized it was bigger than what I was imagining.
At this point, we didn't know if this was a random act of violence that occurred, or if this is someone that had kidnapped Holly or killed Holly.
It's currently under investigation, and we're working with Fort Bragg trying to locate this person.
People are scared, people are worried, and they've got to go fast to try to find her.
It was all happening so rapidly, so quick.
You decided to fly out to see exactly what's happening.
I did.
But your main job was really to find her.
I came here on a mission. I was scared to death because I was afraid of what I was going to find.
And when investigators are given the all clear to enter Holly's apartment,
there was a note that had survived the fire. This letter.
What or who will they uncover?
Oh, look at the cheeks there.
I know, huge cheeks, you know.
She's adorable.
Really very cute, huh? She was a little daddy's girl. She loved working at that hospital. I had no doubt she was going to stay in the Army because she loved it that much.
She found the job she loves.
Yep, she did.
She was up for the challenge. And from what I know, I think she did great.
She worked really hard so she'd be able to get a good life and a good job to be able to raise us better.
At the time of Holly's disappearance in July of 2008, her children, Harper, just 7, and 3-year-old Kendall, were far from the chaos, visiting their father back in Iowa.
We were not there when our mom went missing.
Authorities finally released the name and picture of Second Lieutenant Holly Wymonk, a nurse at Womack Army Medical Center.
You decided to fly out to see exactly what's happening.
I did. You know, my first thought was go to the media like I've seen other families do. Ask Holly to surface, or if somebody's got Holly, ask them to bring her back, you know. And then I thought I should do that from Fayetteville. I should do that from Fort Bragg. Because if she is around there, you know, I can say, here I am, right here, and you can come to see me.
We're in constant contact with the family.
What exactly did the investigators tell you?
Well, that evening, when I got here and I met with the chief of detectives, one of the first questions I said is my daughter dead? And he said, we can't say that. He said, because that hasn't been proven. But he said, I can tell you we have grave, grave concern.
Once the flames were out, investigators combed through the charred remains of Holly's apartment, searching for anything the fire had not destroyed.
For the second day in a row, state and federal agents scoured the young woman's burned apartment.
The case would soon fall to Detective Jeff Locklear of the Fayetteville Police Department, the man tasked with uncovering what happened to Holly. What was your reaction when you learned that the woman that's missing was a soldier?
My partner and I, we were surprised. At that time, you know, the whole city was kind of on edge.
How far are we from her apartment?
So as the crow flies, maybe a mile, not very far at all. All of that stuff was pretty centralized around the mall area of Fayetteville.
Holly's apartment sits along this busy stretch of road just 5 miles outside the gates of Fort Bragg, where she worked as an Army nurse.
And her apartment building was actually the first building that you come to on the right.
Down here, 146.
Yep, 146. Well, as soon as we got here, we could tell, you know, looking through the back window, that place had been burned. She, of course, was not in there.
What's the first thing you saw when you walked in?
Well, I think a better question would be what was the first thing that I smelled, and that was gasoline. And there was so much gasoline in the apartment poured on the floor and on the carpet that as my partner and I would walk, it would kind of gush up next to our shoe. So the fire department was really concerned about it. They said a spark could light this whole place up.
Why was it the building was not completely burnt to the ground?
Anybody can strike a match, but you got to know, you got to have enough air. With this amount of gasoline that was poured in the apartment, they didn't have enough air. They should have left the door open to have vented it more, and we would have had a more complete fire.
So this was an arson, but not a very talented arson.
Exactly.
So in 2008, I was a forensic technician dispatched via radio to respond out to an apartment fire at that time. I initially just started taking photographs around. There's a certain level of emotion that teeters on excitement and anxiousness because you're kind of afraid of what you might find.
By the front door, investigators discovered Holly's purse, still holding her ID, credit cards, her keys, and phone. For the detectives, the abandoned belongings are a red flag.
Typically, being a woman myself, if I were to go off somewhere, my purse and at least my personal belongings, credit cards, things of that nature would have come with me.
As investigators push deeper into the apartment, the kitchen reveals its own disturbing clue.
I noticed that there was a knife block sitting over on the counter, and several knives were missing from the knife block.
We couldn't find any of those knives like in a drawer or maybe dirty in the sink. They were missing from that house altogether.
We knew that could have been used as some sort of a weapon, so we certainly took note of that as well.
The missing knives raised the grim possibility that Holly was stabbed. There were also signs of blood spatter in her bedroom, along with another disturbing piece of evidence.
Probably one of the most alarming things about the master bedroom is, one, the carpet, the large amount of carpet that had been cut from around the door frame. It was almost, carved precisely to cut out a specific shape. All of the bedding had been removed to include the pillowcases. So that was a little out of the norm as well, of a home that had been lived in where there was absolutely no bed linen on it at all.
Then eagle-eyed detectives spot something easy to miss, a single bullet hole in the closet door.
Something potentially could have occurred right in front of the closet.
Amid the devastation, one piece of evidence survived, and it would become the investigation's biggest clue.
I just happened to notice an odd scrap of paper in the middle of the hallway. Then once I uncrumpled the ball of paper, I notified Detective Locklear that there was a message on it.
A note survived the fire.
This letter.
We just thought it might have just been some trash, some refuge, whatever, until we unraveled it.
Can you read that?
It says something to the effect of, she shot herself, and I tried to make it look like an accident.
The note, scrawled in jagged handwriting and unsigned, hinted at Holly's fate, but raised more questions than answers.
It wasn't consistent with what we were seeing, but obviously it was an important piece of evidence that we took note of.
Was the note a confession or a calculated attempt to throw investigators off the trail?
Even the smallest details are something that it may be insignificant now, but down the line it might be one of the most critical pieces of evidence that you have.
When Holly's father arrives at the scene, the evidence looks grim, and yet he holds out hope.
I believed Holly was alive. I said, I'm going to work to try to get her back here. And I'm going to do everything that I can do to try to get her back.
The thought was that she still could be alive and that we could find her, but we knew this also could end very tragically.
And with an active duty soldier missing, the U.S. Army search and rescue mission kicks into high gear.
I mean, the Army's got a missing soldier, and that's a big deal.
We'll dedicate as many people as we have because this is one of our own. That's a sister.
This young mother, this soldier is missing. The clock was ticking.
But where was Holly? And is there a hidden secret in this last photo taken of her before she vanished? Now inside Fort Bragg, North Carolina, about 250 square miles, about 50,000 active duty soldiers. Fort Bragg is a city unto itself, sprawling, relentless, and brimming with power. Soldiers here often call it the center of the military universe. And when Second Lieutenant Holly James goes missing, the U.S. Army mobilizes fast, launching an all-out search, working around the clock to find answers.
Good to see you.
Special Agent Al Diaz is the man in charge of the Army's Criminal Investigation Division at Fort Bragg.
What do you remember when the news came out that Holly was missing?
Just like any time a service member shows up missing, there's just that natural sense of concern. And then what we can do to help local law enforcement find her.
Does it become 24 hours a day?
Absolutely. I mean, you want to put as much effort and resources to it until you find the individual. Are they just missing? Did they succumb to foul play? Like, you just don't know.
Fort Bragg sits like a fortress. At its heart is Womack Medical Center, where Holly worked as an Army nurse. With 13 access points in and out, CID's task was clear: reconstruct Holly's every step in the days before she vanished. Adam Armstrong is a special agent with CID.
All right, so you get the call from the police about what was happening that afternoon.
So when we get that, we'll immediately get a picture of her out so we can start working on the reward posters and all that. And then we start figuring out, okay, how can we start putting together elements to go out and start searching?
Tell us where we're going.
Right now, we're just heading back to the one side of base where Holly was last seen.
Investigators learned that just 2 nights before she was reported missing, Holly had been seen at a late-night softball game on base.
So this is the last place that she was
right here on the right-hand side.
So this was the 8th, 2 days before they discovered that she was missing. This is where she was.
And so a sergeant first class had invited her out to come watch. And then after the game, she actually approached him. He actually helped out a lot. Played a big role in understanding the last time that she was seen.
This is the last photo of Holly taken just before she disappeared.
He said she was happy that night, bubbly, and just seemed to be in good spirits. With the cell phone analysis, and they were able to identify that she did leave the base and she did make it home.
Something had happened to Holly. You just felt like you had to get here?
Had to come.
While Army investigators combed the base, Holly's father, Jesse James, launches his own search for answers.
I had to get to Fort Bragg, so I had to think about how I was going to get sort of control of the situation.
Your father was on a mission to try to figure out what happened to his daughter, to your sister.
Absolutely. He was on a mission, and 10 seconds of hearing that his daughter was missing, he wasn't going to let it go, nor should he.
Thinking about my grandfather dropping everything to fly to Fayetteville and find her, that's a man who loves his daughter.
And it shows how loving and caring he is and how deeply he loves his family.
The thought occurred to me that I'm going to go to the bank and see if she had any charges on her checking account or credit card since she disappeared. I got up and drove over to the bank. I said, Are there any recent charges in the past day to her credit card or her checking account?
A bank attorney confirms that there had been activity on Holly's account, charges dated the very day she vanished.
So there was hope.
Oh, let's see. I walked away stepping lightly, as quickly as I could, called Detective Locklear, and he almost hung up on me. He wanted to call that bank to get a warrant to get the checking account information.
But to Jesse's disappointment, what seems like a promising lead goes nowhere. It turns out those transactions were older ones, charges that had only just been cleared.
Took all the wind out of me and was right back where we started.
Desperate for answers, Jesse comes here to Holly's workplace at Womack Medical Center to try to retrace his daughter's footsteps.
Yeah, so this is where she was, huh?
It is where she was. The morning after I got here, I just walked in and introduced myself, and I could just feel a shockwave go through the unit, you know, because they were experiencing it just like we were. She loved these people, and she loved the people she worked with. I could sense a presence here of Holly. I could see her just running the hall. She never walked slow. I could see her just rushing through these hallways, and I could feel that. And I thought, I just might be putting my feet where her feet were. And that affected me.
Days into the investigation, there is still no sign of Holly. But then an unexpected twist, a possible link to another female soldier who had also gone missing from Fort Bragg.
These mysterious letters come into the Fayetteville Observer as well as the Fayetteville Police Department.
CID said, look, we got a second female soldier that's missing and has possibly been harmed.
We wondered, could this be connected to Holly's case?
Are we dealing with a copycat here?
A disturbing letter, marked with a chilling symbol.
And there it is on that mirror in the lipstick.
And could there be a connection to Holly?
I'm like, this has never happened. It's like something you see in a movie. When I left the crime scene, I didn't think that we would find her alive.
Summer 2008, Holly Lynn James has vanished. Teams of investigators search for clues in a burned out apartment near Fort Bragg Army Base. But it turns out Holly's not the only female soldier in the area to go missing that June.
Yeah, right at the same time, there's two different investigations, also with soldiers, also females.
It's two females now. Both are in the military, and both of the situations are nothing about them is normal. It was getting interesting here at the Fayetteville Police Department.
About a month before Holly disappeared, another female soldier from Fort Bragg went missing. The police got a call saying that there was a strange odor coming out of this hotel, and that took a chilling turn.
A deceased person was located inside room 143. She was dressed in a bathing suit, almost as like she had just left the pool. And then when the maintenance guy found her, the water was still running in the bathtub.
She was submerged in the bathtub, and so there was water everywhere. There was actually a towel along the bottom edge of the door, so whoever had done it was thinking ahead. And so that way the water couldn't get out to alert anybody.
This room had been rented to a Megan Tuma. Megan was a soldier, an active duty soldier.
23-year-old Megan Tuma was a dental specialist who had been with the Army for 5 years. Her body was found in a hotel room June 21st. She was 7 months pregnant and may have been dead for days.
Megan Tuma had newly transferred to Fort Bragg from a military base in Germany. She was supposed to go to work, and she didn't show up for work. They did not notice that she was missing.
She's found on the 21st of June. The last time she was seen, I believe, was 15 June, and so there's about a 6-day gap. And then the hotel that she was staying in, off post, she had one of those do not disturbs on. And so that's why she was in there for a lengthy time without anybody coming in.
So she was in an advanced state of decomposition. some evidence of a struggle, some of what we believe to be blood, light blood transfer on the wall.
So she was murdered in that hotel.
The autopsy revealed she had been strangled. We flipped the switch then and it went to a homicide investigation. There was something else in the room, though, that made us really suspicious. The mirror outside the bathroom had a very large insignia drawn on it in lipstick. That insignia that was drawn there was the zodiac sign. A couple of days later, we get a letter through the mail from a person purporting to be somebody who is reenacting the Zodiac murders from the West Coast.
From 1968 to 1974, several newspapers in the San Francisco area received a series of anonymous letters from the self-proclaimed Zodiac killer who claimed credit for up to 37 murders. The 2007 movie Zodiac put one of America's biggest unsolved murder cases on the big screen.
It's unsigned except for a symbol. Is it me? Or does that look like a gun sign?
A letter has surfaced claiming the murder is a work of a serial killer.
Good morning, Robin. That letter certainly has gotten everyone's attention. In a twisted case with very few leads, police have been forced to pay particular attention to this letter sent to a local newspaper. The writer signed the letter with a symbol made famous by the infamous Zodiac killer of the 1960s.
The Fayetteville Observer received a letter, and this is what the letter said. I am responsible for the dead body that was found on Saturday, June 21st at 11:30 in room 143. I confess that I have killed many times before in several states, but now I will start using my role model's signature.
We were sitting down in a meeting with CID about this exact letter when we got the call to go out to Holly's apartment. We were like, what is going on here? It's like something you see in a movie. The guy's trying to communicate with the police by way of mail.
And you're looking at the possibility this could be the same killer.
Of course, the same symbol is on the bottom of this letter that was written on the mirror in the hotel room in the lipstick. So are we dealing with a copycat here?
We very much thought that it was a possibility these were connected. Was Holly this killer's next victim, which would have been just a couple of weeks after Megan Tuma's murder. So it was certainly of interest and of concern in the disappearance of Holly.
The public is demanding answers. Now people are making phone calls. They're calling the chief, the city council. Hey, is there a serial killer in Fayetteville?
But as investigators dig deeper into the Megan Tuma case, they begin to question that serial killer theory. Detectives are able to uncover evidence that her murder might have been a highly personal one. And the trail leads to someone very close to her.
She had began a relationship with an individual and she had become pregnant as a result of that relationship. Well, it turns out he was married. He was in the military on the same base in Germany that Megan was assigned to. And we did a search warrant on his house, and you wouldn't believe it. He was actually actively taking a crime scene class at a local college here in Fayetteville.
Authorities begin to close in on the man that they think might be responsible for Megan's murder. And in that parallel investigation, detectives also uncover evidence that Holly's disappearance also might not have been random, that it too could have been a highly personal crime.
It was obvious that something terrible had happened to Holly, and we were fairly certain that it was someone close to her that had done it.
Could a woman connected to John Wymunk with a possible grudge against Holly be responsible for her disappearance?
She was a threat?
She was a threat.
Two women stationed at Fort Bragg have met with tragedy. Fayetteville, North Carolina is a town on edge.
I think it's horrible what happened.
Stop in your tracks.
The community was scared. It sort of put a lot of pressure on us as well. The public is wanting to know, what are we doing about it?
But then a huge development in the Megan Tuma case as Fayetteville police close in on the person they suspect is responsible for her murder.
Police in North Carolina are expected to offer details today about the death of a pregnant Fort Bragg soldier.
Who was it that was ultimately found to be the murderer in this case?
The person that was responsible for taking Megan Tuma's life was Edgar Patino. He was the father of her child that she was carrying.
And then the person claiming to have killed her had sent letters to the newspaper and to the police claiming to be like the Zodiac killer.
We were able to prove that the letters that were sent were typed at our suspect's house by a typewriter in our suspect's room.
Edgar was also married at the time, and he had killed Megan Tuma because she was pregnant with a child, and yet he was still married and he wanted to remain with his wife.
And he's the one that set that crime scene up. He's the one that drew that Zodiac sign on the mirror.
Patino was playing games with the cops, trying to be too clever for his own good and lead them astray, and I don't think they ever really bought it.
So at that point, we had ruled out that the killer of Megan Tuma was also the killer or person responsible for the disappearance of Holly.
So now the race is on to find the culprit behind Holly's disappearance. A review of the evidence at the crime scene has investigators convinced that Holly knew her assailant.
There was no evidence that there was an intruder who had forced their way into the home through the door, through a window, or something like that.
We never thought that some stranger walking down Morganton Road just decided to peep through this girl's window and do all of this. We were fairly certain that the person that had done all these things knew her and that she knew that person.
Did it seem to indicate that this may have been done by somebody who knew the details of that apartment?
Holly either let that person in or that person made his way into the apartment by some other means, possibly by a key.
Detectives believe that whoever was in Holly's apartment also tried to cover up evidence of what happened there.
We found actually a carpet cleaner, and we tested that carpet cleaner, and it tested positive for blood on a preliminary test. Just from what I'd seen, the reaction we got from the luminol, the amount of carpet that was cut from the floor in the bedroom, the bed sheets and clothing and stuff had been taken off the bed. All those were indicators for me that there had been at least some measure of crime scene cleanup that had tried to take place.
Whoever did this might have tried to cover their tracks, but that crumpled letter was left behind.
It appeared that whoever wrote that note was inside the apartment when this terrible thing happened to Holly, but it does not identify who they were or what their relationship to Holly was.
The person that wrote this letter is the person that tried to burn that apartment, which is the person that knows where Holly's at. That's the way I was looking at it.
At the time of Holly's disappearance, we knew she was going through a tumultuous time in her life.
As investigators look into Holly's personal life for clues, they learned that about 8 months before she went missing, Holly had filed a request for a temporary restraining order against an ex-girlfriend of her husband named Lindsay. In the filing, Holly alleges that for 18 months, the defendant has continuously posted pictures of herself and my spouse on the internet with comments directed at me and claims I have changed my phone number 6 times.
Holly would always call Lindsay John's little girlfriend. I think there was a lot of yelling, a lot of swearing. Holly was getting exhausted because of the bombardment. I think she was just at the end of her rope.
Lindsay denied harassing Holly. In fact, she tells investigators Holly was the one harassing her, and she was never served with Holly's request for a restraining order.
She was considered a threat. That's why we wanted to look at her, because we had to consider her.
But when investigators talk to her, she denies having anything to do with Holly's disappearance. They also discover she had an alibi on the date Holly disappeared.
What did she say?
She provided a full breakdown of her timeline leading up to the disappearance of Holly.
She was not in Fayetteville the night Holly went missing.
So there was no evidence whatsoever to charge her for what happened to Holly.
She had no criminal culpability in this at all.
While Lindsay is fully cleared, investigators say she provides them with some revealing information about John Wymonk's activities the night of Holly's disappearance.
She actually told us about a phone call that she had with John, and John said that he was actually on his way to Fayetteville. So that was a key piece of evidence for us.
When she called him, he was like, I'm on my way, I can't do this anymore.
Why would he reveal this to her?
That's what we had to look at.
As investigators learn more about John Wymonk, they decide to bring him in again to answer questions about his wife's disappearance.
I'm at the point where I have no idea what's going on, okay? This is my wife. What the fuck happened with my wife? That's what we're all trying to find out.
And a shocking discovery in the middle of nowhere will bring yet another Marine into the frame.
Guess where I just come from? There's soot and dirt on my shoe. Why do you think there's soot and dirt on my shoe? How am I supposed to believe anything that you say? For God's sake, son, I need to find this woman. I got to do something for these kids.
Let you know that everything's okay. I'll talk to you later, baby. Tell him it's a Chevy. It's a Chevy.
This young mother, this soldier is missing. The clock was ticking.
What happened with my wife? You know what I mean? That's what we're all trying to find out.
Here was a mysterious person running through the parking lot and getting into a black pickup truck.
Today is the day of salvation. You better get on board right now.
What he specifically said is, are y'all looking for a blonde girl?
If you somehow committed a perfect murder and left no evidence, you could get away with it.
Rick, what's the worst you've ever done? He said the worst thing I've ever done is kill somebody.
He carved her name into a bullet and told her, this one's for you.
It's come to Jesus time. Now you tell me the rest of it. Tell me the rest of it.
For many years, I woke up at 4 a.m., went to the basement so I could cry, and called out for my daughter. When I had contacted you, I had no idea it would be so complicated. You stole my daughter from me.
Holly was a second lieutenant nurse corps officer. She was assigned to Womack Army Medical Center at Fort Bragg. All of her patients loved her. Her coworkers loved her.
That morning of the 10th of July, that was the first indication that something strange had happened.
She didn't show up for work, and she wouldn't answer any of the calls from her friends. And for them, that was a big deal.
Her co-workers there became concerned, so they went to her apartment and found that it had been set on fire.
But what the scene did tell us was that something horrible had happened inside that apartment.
You just don't know the full extent of what has occurred, but you're also kind of afraid of what you might find.
Your father was on a mission to try to figure out what happened to his daughter.
He was on a mission and he wasn't going to let it go.
I was living like in two different worlds, I think. One believing that she's alive, another that she's dead.
So this young mother, this soldier is missing. The clock was ticking.
There's a lot of pressure on us.
It had been 3 days since Holly James had disappeared. Police had taken a close look at John Wymonk's former girlfriend, but investigators discovered that she had an alibi for the night Holly went missing and was nowhere near Fayetteville.
What was her demeanor when you were talking to her, investigating?
She was scared that she had been drawn into this mess.
She was ruled out as a suspect in the investigation, but she had provided information that was helpful.
Investigators say the former girlfriend is able to provide them with an inside look at the relationship between John and Holly.
They had been married for approximately a year, but towards the end of this 1 year marriage, it had become rather complicated between them.
Holly's brother, Bo, says the phone calls between John and Holly were becoming increasingly volatile.
He would be on the phone and then he would be just screaming at her.
You're watching him scream and you could hear your sister Holly reacting to that. What was she doing?
Crying, telling him to stop. And I felt like, well, I need to say something, but at the same time I thought, well, this is a married couple. I thought about if somebody tried doing that to me, it might upset me.
As investigators looked deeper into their relationship, they learned from friends close to Holly that John seemed insecure, that he held a lower rank than his wife.
I think it was something of a resentment that she was a woman and she outranked him.
John Wymunk was a corporal?
Yes.
So his level of skills was pretty high end?
I would say it was good. He's still honing his skills and still learning.
Her being an officer, she outranked him, and he would always tell her, "You're not a real officer," things like that, just putting her down.
We had a non-commissioned officer married to an Army second lieutenant. That just doesn't happen. That's the first time in my whole career that I had seen something like that.
According to Holly's friends, it was clear that John's attitude and frequent yelling directed towards his wife and distance between their bases was putting a strain on the relationship.
I didn't talk to you, so I just wanted to send you a quick hi and let you know that everything's okay.
They lived 2.5 hours apart. Eventually their marriage became estranged.
She had put up with the emotional abuse, and I think she finally realized that it wasn't going to get any better.
And as investigators continued to dig, they begin to realize that the alleged abuse may have been more than emotional.
We had done a number of interviews with her friends, some of the ladies that worked with her at Womack. First thing they told us was how violent John had been in the past.
Armed with these insights into Holly and John's marriage, investigators head to Camp Lejeune to talk with him. This is where the Marines are. They have a lot of questions for Holly's husband, John Wymunk, about where he was and what he did that night.
NCIS agent brought him in from the command, interviewed him just to try and figure out what was going on and what he knew about Holly's whereabouts.
Hey, John, here's my guidebook. Hey, John. How you doing, sir? You sit this hot coffee down, buddy. Yes, sir. John, Jeff Locklear from Fayetteville.
He expressed that there were concerns for his wife, that he did not know where she was.
I'm at the point where I have no idea what's going on, okay? This is my wife. And everybody knows that. That is my apartment. What the is going on with my wife? You know what I mean? That's what we're all trying to find out, man.
After a brief conversation, the agent conducting the interview noticed a smell of alcohol, and that Corporal Wymunk was likely intoxicated or under the influence of alcohol.
I have been drinking. Okay. And I don't want the things that I say to be turned around.
I don't want to talk with you now that I can smell the odor of alcohol in you. I don't want to talk to you about legal stuff while that's even a question in my mind. Let's handle all that tomorrow.
So he's free to go. He's not in custody or whatever.
So what did you learn in this investigation here?
It gives me a chance to look him in his eye. It gives me a chance to smell him. There's a difference between regular sweating and stress sweat. You can smell that guy.
Really? So you knew at that point?
Yeah, he ain't telling me everything, right?
In any type of case where we have a missing person, we have suspicious circumstances. I mean, the spouse is obviously a person of interest. NCIS will immediately look at them and trying to establish, are they related or are they unrelated? Either way.
We continue to gather evidence, to interview people, really focus in on John's movements and whereabouts around July 9th.
But as investigators focus their attention on John Wymunk, they are also conducting a canvass of Holly's apartment complex and get a tip that is about to pay off in a big way.
Here was a mysterious person running through the parking lot and getting into a black pickup truck. It gave us something to go on. It was a turning point in the investigation.
As investigators continue their urgent search for any leads linked to Holly's disappearance, they get their first big break in the case at her apartment complex.
We began interviewing neighbors. Did anybody see anything? Did anybody hear anything?
We interviewed one young lady, and she said that the night that apartment was burned, she was outside walking her dog. And she said that she saw a guy running through the shadows. She said he was purposely trying to stay in the shadows, and that he had dark clothing on, and that he was a white male. She did distinctly remember him running out to a truck.
It gave us something to go on.
Investigators talked to anyone involved in Holly's life to find out more details about that truck and who it may have belonged to, including at Camp Lejeune, where she often spent time with her husband.
As the police canvassed and interviewed people at Camp Lejeune, they found out that a young Marine named Kyle had been asking around about borrowing a pickup truck to help a friend move some things, and that was in the time period that Holly had disappeared.
Kyle is in fact Lance Corporal Kyle Alden, and investigators discover the identity of the man who he said he was helping to move. It was none other than Holly's husband, John Wymonk.
This became a very important piece of information, so we wanted to talk to Kyle and see if we could connect the dots.
Hey, buddy.
Hello, sir.
Hey, I'm Locklear.
Alden is brought in for an interview at Camp Lejeune with Detective Jeff Locklear.
This apartment, we got a fire at an apartment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know who owns that apartment? Without me even getting into specifics, go ahead and tell me who owns the apartment in Fayetteville. Who used to live there?
John Wymonk.
John Wymonk. And you know John?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So you have all this evidence. You go to interview Alden, so you treat him like your buddy, to be somebody who you want to be nice to.
Never had to raise my voice to him. Weren't cussing and yelling at him. Weren't accusing him of anything. Just going through and stuff, and kind of set the stage for him to begin to let his guard down some.
And you guys get to Fayetteville, and you went and picked up the stuff.
We get to Fayetteville, walked to the back of the apartment building, grabbed the grill, left it over the railing, and put it in the truck.
So you guys didn't go inside his old apartment?
No, sir.
Kyle Alden tells Locklear that he and Wymonk went to Holly's apartment but could not get inside. He then says that they left. He went back home to go sleep with his wife, but it turns out that Locklear had already spoken to Alden's wife.
She says, I don't know what the heck's going on, okay? But not only that, but he's telling me to cover him, okay?
He was lying about large elements of the story.
This is true.
At this point of the interview, Locklear decides to dramatically up the ante with Alden.
For God's sake, son, I need to find this woman. I got to do something for these kids. Help me, help me, help me, help you. That life raft's out there. I need for you to grab it. I need for you to hold on to it. If you don't get it right now, okay, tomorrow is going to be too late.
Yes, sir.
I'm telling you, for God's sake, son, tell me. Tell me. Tell me. Now's the time. Yesterday was history.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow's a mystery. Today is what we're dealing with. Today is the day of salvation. You better get on board right now.
Yes, sir.
He seems to be holding back. We think he knows more than he's telling us.
Did John hurt Holly?
I have no idea.
Do you think John hurt Holly?
Kinda, but I want to hope not.
I do too. I would love for Holly to call me right now. That ain't gonna happen.
But as Detective Locklear is turning the screws on Kyle Alden, the interview is suddenly interrupted.
And somebody came and knocked on the interview door.
Go outside and talk to the boss a minute.
If somebody's stopping the interview, the building better be on fire. But somebody did.
A 911 call has come in from a forestry service in nearby Onslow County.
Hey, what? Yes, you heard me right.
That could lead to happiness or heartache.
What he specifically said is, are y'all looking for a blonde girl?
It had been 4 days since Lieutenant Holly James had vanished, and at this point, John Wymunk has emerged as the prime suspect in the disappearance of his wife, a fact not lost on his commanding officer, Colonel Kirk Cordova.
The prime suspect was a Marine, and it was one of my Marines.
And given the reputation that he had, did you think at that time that maybe he is somebody that could be guilty of this?
Yes, given his nature and the fact that he's somewhat of a hothead and wanted to be in control all the time. As soon as I heard Wymunk was a prime suspect, I assigned somebody to him and make sure he didn't leave, didn't run, so we knew where he was at all times.
While investigators methodically build their case against Wymunk, Jesse James decides to take a more direct approach, confronting him in person. What did he say exactly to you?
And I drove out to Camp Lejeune, and he was with like 3 friends. I saw some arrogance, saw that he was drinking. I just leaned into him very, very close. And I said, John, if you somehow committed a perfect murder and left no evidence behind and no one but you knows it, there's a sliver of chance that you could get away with it. But I said, if one person knows, you're gonna die for the crime.
What'd you read in his face?
Fear. Fear that all the arrogance was gone. If I'd have had a gun that day, I would have killed him.
I want you to tell me what happened. I gotta find Holly. For God's sakes, where's Holly at?
I do not know.
Okay.
Police continue to try and chip away at Wymonk's fellow Marine, Kyle Alden, but if he knows anything about Holly's disappearance, he's not giving up the goods.
Investigators knew he wasn't telling the truth and that he was hiding something.
He was stonewalling the investigation.
Oh yeah. I was surprised that he could hold out as long as he held out.
So he was in the middle of an interview, and suddenly some information came in that something was found at this field about 15 miles away from Camp Lejeune.
NCIS received a phone call. What we discovered was that the North Carolina Forestry Service had responded to a fire in a wooded area in Sneads Ferry, North Carolina.
So when those guys got to the scene and they go over there, it was pretty clear that there's a body in a shallow grave that looks like someone has tried to burn. They put the call in to the sheriff's office.
We down here on this fire. We need sheriff's department down here for possible burned up body. You did what? Yes, you heard me right.
When they called you, they knew it was a body.
They said, we believe we found a burial site, and this might be the missing female from Fayetteville.
What he specifically said is, are y'all looking for a blonde girl? And obviously, that hit really close to home. It was a sad day in that we knew what had ultimately happened to Holly.
The authorities shifted their focus here to Sneads Ferry, North Carolina. This is about 130 miles away where Holly was living in her apartment, only about 15 miles away from Camp Lejeune.
If you were looking to hide a body, it would be a good place to do it. It's a very remote spot.
We drove out there to the crime scene, to the burial site.
You saw a body there, a burnt body.
I saw human remains rolled up in what appeared to be an air mattress. There was a hatchet in the burn pit with the remains. I saw a number of knives that looked like they came out of a butcher block.
Were those the ones that were also identified that we saw in the pictures inside her apartment that day when it was found out that she was missing?
Right, so those knives that were found with the body matched the style, make, and type that were missing from Holly's apartment.
The best way I could explain it to you is it was an oval-shaped 6-inch hole in the ground, long enough, to place her body.
So she was not buried, she was just laid there for the fire. And then how did they ignite it?
Gasoline.
Just poured it all around the area. Jesse James is at his son's house at Camp Lejeune when a detective from Fayetteville Police calls him with the news.
And of course I said, let's go. I'm going out there, to see the remains. And he said, I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should come out there with us. And I said, well, I don't care really what you think at this point. I'm going out where my child's remains were found. And he says, well, let me just try to make it a little clearer. There isn't much to see. He said the body had been burning for days.
I know that when it came to finding her, there was a lot of love poured into it, and that is something that I really appreciate, that people who didn't necessarily know her still felt the need to find her and loved her as deeply as they did.
An autopsy would confirm that the dismembered remains found in the pit were Holly's. The cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the head.
During the initial crime scene process, one of the things that kind of stood out to me was a small hole in the closet door of the master bedroom. I didn't know why, I couldn't explain it. Sure enough, as soon as we cut that door into, a piece of bullet fragment fell out. So my suspicions initially were correct, that it looks like she was laying down on the floor in the bedroom. The round was fired into her head, it exited her head, it hit the concrete floor, ricocheted up, and rested in the closet door.
One of the critical pieces that you need is the physical body of the person that was killed, and we had that now. And so the first thing we wanted to do is go talk to Kyle Alden again and ask him what really happened that day.
But would this tough Marine finally crack?
It's come to Jesus time, all right? But you can't get forgiveness unless you ask for forgiveness. You better get it out right now.
Investigators have finally discovered the remains of Holly Lynn James at a site deep in a pine forest. But Kyle Alden denies knowing anything about what became of her.
Have you guys found her body yet?
I'm gonna be honest with you, we will find her, all right? I promise you that.
As the questioning continues, Detective Locklear decides to see if some psychological persuasion can get Alden to open up.
And then I guess that's the whole crew.
Photos tend to help get people in their feelings, and that's the reason I introduced some photos in the interview.
So now you're showing him the pictures of these two adorable kids.
Mm-hmm. He tried to not look at the photos. Every time I would catch him kind of leading off, not looking at the photos, I said, no, look at her and her kids. And that pressure really worked with him.
Finally, Alden starts revealing details about the day of Holly's disappearance. He tells detectives that John Wymonk called to ask if he could borrow a truck.
I told him I can make a couple phone calls and see if I can get a truck. He's like, okay, I'll meet you in Clinton.
What is this?
Kyle Alden and John Wymonk stopped at a Shell gas station in Clinton, North Carolina, which is about halfway between here and Camp Lejeune.
And then we go into the gas station. He's like, you want something to drink? It's like, okay. And then we go back outside. We talk a little bit. He's like, what's the worst thing you've ever done? He said, the worst thing I've ever done is killed somebody.
What do you think he means by this?
I do not know. I did not want to know.
What else does he say?
He's like, you can't say anything about this, but I need your help doing something.
Okay, and did you ask him what he means?
No.
Are you worried at this point?
I'm kind of worried. I'm kind of hesitant. What could he have done? Why does he not want me to tell anybody?
The dam's beginning to break, right? The information's beginning to come forward.
Alden says they leave the Shell station, and about an hour later, the pair reaches their destination, Holly's apartment in Fayetteville.
Here, Alden changes his story, now saying that the two did, in fact, go into the apartment.
You both get out of the truck. And then we walk down the sidewalk, back over to his apartment. Then I come into the master bedroom, and the carpet's torn out.
I just don't think that he was prepared when he arrived at her apartment for what he saw.
So you guys carried that stuff out to the other truck? Yes. What do you do next? We go back in for the blue bag thing, and then we just pick it up and carry it. How much the bag weigh? Probably about 150 pounds. What do you think was in the bag? Thought crossed my mind. It's like, the worst thing he's ever done is killed somebody. We're in his house. There was a blood spot on his wall. There's a blood spot on the bed. There's a blood spot on the floor. What the hell happened? Am I carrying out a body?
He got really nervous talking about what he saw when he first arrived at the apartment. His carotid artery, you can watch that in a person, and when they really get nervous, it's almost like there's a little small green tree frog right in their throat. It's just throbbing.
We drive around for a little bit, and then he says, hey, we need to go to Walmart's.
Then a brazen act is caught on video.
When they got to Walmart and parked, they actually went to the bed of the truck, picked her body up, took it, put it in the cab of the truck, closed the door, locked it, went inside and shopped.
We grabbed 2 jugs of Shell oil.
They pay for the items at the register and head back to the truck.
They then came back out and removed her body from the interior of the truck and put it back in the bed. We retrieved that video. That was a really key piece of evidence for us that they had the callousness to do that.
Alden says the pair then head back towards Camp Lejeune, stopping along the way to pick up Wymonk's car. And then from there, they each drive to a secluded spot.
So what happens? Then I continue to put the bags in the tote in the trunk, the big bag in the backseat of the car, and then I take off.
Alden says he then continues home, solo, and that was the end of his involvement.
Is there any details that we missed this time? Not that I can think of right now.
But Detective Locklear has a hunch that Alden has more to tell. Could bringing him back for one more day of questioning finally break the case fully open?
The next day, when I walked back in that interview room, I had my chest poked out and my tail feathers were high because I was armed with information that I didn't have when I first went in there. And I let him know it.
Guess where I just come from? They soot and dirt on my shoes. Why do you think there's soot and dirt on my shoes?
I have no idea.
I went where Holly's at. You have been lying to me since we met one another, right? But I don't understand why.
Sensing that Alden is still holding back, Detective Jeff Locklear, who happens to be a preacher's son, invokes a higher authority.
It's come to Jesus time, all right? But you can't get forgiveness unless you ask for forgiveness. You better get it out right now. Now you tell me the rest of it. Tell me the rest of it.
Will that appeal get Alden to see the light? Will he finally tell the truth about what really happened to Holly?
I tell him, this stuff is scaring me. I don't know what to do.
In the NCIS building at Camp Lejeune, it's been 3 long days of questioning for Marine Kyle Alden. And it's at this point he finally tells investigators what he claims to know about John Wymonk's involvement in the death of his wife, Holly.
He called me, it was around 6:30. He said that he'd been there all morning and all afternoon. He's like, I killed her. I didn't ask him how he killed her. I just said, why?
You have to be careful in situations like this. He's telling me a story, and if I encourage him and it's not correct, you go down the wrong road here.
Told me that she didn't die right away, so he had to hit her again. And I told him I don't want to hear that.
But he still kept telling you, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
What did he say?
He's like, The look in her eye, he'd never seen anything like it. The look in her eye.
Kyle Alden then says he and John Wymonk are not yet done at the apartment.
He told me he had to burn the apartment and he had to let it burn for a really long time because he wanted to try to get rid of all the evidence.
They had devised a plan or made an agreement that they would drive her remains back to the area of Camp Lejeune and find somewhere at that point to bury the remains.
Investigators say they choose a place familiar to Alden.
Alden was living not far from here. How far away was he?
As the crow flies, about a half mile. The reason they picked this area was he was familiar with it because he had been back here doing some target shooting. That's how he even knew that this place existed. I had enough probable cause at that time to charge him with the arson and the conspiracy to commit the arson. That allowed me to arrest him, Alden, and arrest Wymonk and get my hands on him and get him back to Fayetteville.
With both men in custody, the focus now switches back to John Wymonk and what possible motive could he have to kill his wife. Investigators believe the answer to that question lies in what they were told about John's alleged violent treatment of Holly.
The first time we really talked about it is when her and John Wymonk got in the fight, and she showed up at my house. Her hair was a mess. She had scratches and claw marks all over her back.
We came out a couple of weeks on vacation to visit Holly, a couple of weeks before she was murdered, and I met him again once there. I just really didn't have a sense that there was anything until she began talking about a divorce.
Authorities come to learn that Holly filed for a protective order against John Wymonk in May, less than 2 months before she was killed, in which she alleged a chilling encounter with her husband.
We discovered that there had been an incident in the prior months leading up to this where he had threatened suicide and also held a gun to her head.
To her head?
Correct.
Threatening to kill her?
Yes.
The night that Holly left John at the apartment, she was kind of telling me everything that happened, that John had threatened her. He carved her name into a bullet and told her, "This one's for you."
The fact that he was in the military and went as extreme as he did makes it so much worse, because his main priority should have been protecting her. That was his main job, was to protect a mother and a wife, and he couldn't, and he wouldn't do that.
After Holly did not show up for a court hearing on the protective order, the case was dismissed.
You need anything to drink? Glass of water, sir. You want some water? Fair enough.
Despite the growing amount of evidence against John Wymonk implicating him in Holly's murder, Wymonk still will not talk.
Armed with the information that Kyle had given investigators, they gave John Wymonk an opportunity to come clean and tell what happened. He said he wasn't going to talk with them without an attorney present.
Okay, stand up. Follow me out here.
He was then charged with first-degree murder, second-degree arson, as well as conspiracy to commit second-degree arson.
Corporal John Wymonk is accused of killing his wife, Second Lieutenant Holly Wymonk, a nurse stationed at Fort Bragg.
My client is presumed to be innocent. We don't want this case tried in the media. We want it to be tried in a court of law.
Taking a case to trial, there's always risk involved. In this case, we had very good information from Kyle, and the thought was that Kyle would testify at trial as to what happened, and then we would put all the circumstantial evidence together to point to the fact of what John Wymonk had done that night.
While John Wymonk pleads not guilty to all charges in connection with the arson and his wife's death, Kyle Alden is now cooperating with authorities. He agrees to take Detective Locklear through the night of Holly's murder at the scene of the crime.
It was very telling to bring him back to the spot. He had never been here before, right before that night. This is only the second time he had ever been here, and he could still remember where he parked.
I parked right there besides the Chrysler.
It was worth taking him back out there and having him tell it from the viewpoint of the guy that was there the night this happened.
From there, you guys went to...
we went back out towards Jacksonville, Smiths Ferry area.
Did he give an indication of why it is that he did what he did, what Alden did?
The only explanation that I'm aware of is that Wymunk, being another Marine, asked him for help, and he agreed.
You're a Marine, would you do that?
Absolutely not.
After he confessed, Kyle Alden was charged, and he ultimately pleaded guilty.
Kyle Alden was sentenced to approximately 5 years in prison.
And at a hearing for John Wymunk, Holly's brother Bo sees the man he once called a friend now accused of killing his sister.
So we stood up when Wymunk came in, and he didn't even look. He didn't turn around.
Ultimately, in 2010, John Wymunk pled guilty to first-degree murder.
John Wymunk is sentenced to life in prison for arson, conspiracy to commit arson, and Holly's murder.
The district attorney called me and he said, I have Wymunk here. His parents have convinced him to take a plea of life without parole. I said, you just take the plea and send him to prison, so that's what they did.
Did you hope there was a death penalty?
I personally wanted it, yeah. It's a different opinion than my dad's.
With John Wymunk now behind bars, Jesse James still has questions.
Did you expect he would write back to you?
Will this father finally get answers from his daughter's killer?
She was honored in many ways.
It was a lavish funeral, and I did it on purpose because Holly was a big personality. The police in the community from several communities came, and the Patriot Guard. It looked like a state funeral.
Dignitary.
Dignitary, yeah. And that's what I wanted for Holly.
What was it like then to be at a funeral like that?
It's heartbreaking. And I just uncontrollably cried. It was awful. It was just in so many ways.
You put them together. The man that you introduced to your sister ultimately killed her.
Right. It's part of what haunts me for a long part of my life, absolutely.
But that's looking back. Nobody can ever predict something that they already learned.
But once you go through something, it's really hard to take it away. Pretending it didn't happen is hard, but coming to terms with it is even harder.
Sometimes I think every time I take a step here, maybe I'm taking a step in a place she has stepped. And that gives me a sense of presence.
Here in the hallway of Womack Army Medical Center, where Holly once worked, her memory stands eternal, a silent testament to a life that will not be forgotten. What does that say down there?
In memory of Second Lieutenant Holly James, for her joy, her service, and her support of mothers and babies.
Well, she was loved.
Yes, she was.
The pain of losing a daughter never fades, and neither do the unanswered questions. So after all these years, you still want to know more?
Yeah, I'd like to know more.
Recently, Jesse made the difficult decision to reach out to John Wymunk, the man who murdered his daughter, through an online prisoner website.
John, both my son Jesse and I carry no anger toward you, but only grief for the loss of Holly. The level of grief we carry leaves no room for you. To my surprise, I did receive a response to my letter. The response goes like this: thank you for reaching out to me. You are entitled to answers, to which I will give them to you as best I can. I hope this will provide some closure for all parties involved.
Did you expect he would write back to you?
I thought he would. It took a long time, and the return letter went into the things like, yeah, we need to talk.
But rather than taking responsibility, Wymunk outlines a process centered on his own terms and not on the needs of Jesse.
Even in that letter that he wrote, there's no apology. He does not care about what he did. He only cares about what's happening to him.
You are now communicating with the man who murdered your daughter. If you were to talk to him in person, would that be something that would be somewhat helpful to you?
I think being in the same room would have a negative impact on me. John, I can assure you that I have no interest in engaging in restorative justice or any sense of closure with you. How could you possibly restore 17 years of life without Holly? I've fought to live a life of joy because I didn't want to be a victim of John Wymuck too.
So you've never been there?
Never been there.
Would you want to go there?
At this point, I think I would like to do that.
Years after his daughter was discovered here, Jesse James visits the sacred, hallowed ground for the first time, not just to face where Holly's body was abandoned, but to honor her memory.
Not only for myself, but I'd like to represent my family and her friends that did not get to see her again.
What do you think about now?
I think that I miss my protector. She was always the big sister.
Today, those who loved Holly keep her memory alive, remembering her as the devoted mother and dedicated soldier she always strived to be. What would you like the world to remember about Holly?
I think she should be remembered for trying to give so much. My sister loved protecting the people she cared about.
Got the same smile too, right there. I want people to remember her as a really good mother with the time she had.
I am very proud of who she was. Yeah, a patriot is someone who goes above and beyond, and that's what she did. Like, no matter what.
Isn't she sweet?
She put everything above herself. And I don't think there's anything more patriotic than that.